Welcome to the Thursday edition of the AM show right here on Joy News. My name is Sweetie Abochi, and of course I do this with...
Well, call me Mr. Maroon because of the colors I'm rocking this morning. Benjamin Akakbo is my name. It's good to be here with you. I'm excited because today is my day.
Oh, okay.
I'm a Yao.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yao, Yawa, Yaba, all of those.
Okay.
We're in the mix today.
I like Thursdays because it's close to Fridays and close to the weekend, and I love the weekend. But you know how we do it on the AM show. In a bit, I'll be serving you the news. And after that, Dr. Afil Moni, former GJA president, will be joining us for the news review. You want to stay for that. And after that, we'll get right into AM Sports, where Muftar Nabil Abdullahi will bring you all the latest in your favorite sports across the world.
Well, from there, we get into our big stories. First on the list, today's AM exclusive, we have a conversation with Professor Raymond Atuguba. He is Dean of the Ghana School of Law at the University of Ghana. So he's Dean of the School of Law at the University of Ghana. It's a conversation you don't want to miss. But there's some more controversy. What you would like to say?
Well, the Asantehene Otumfuo Setutu strokes controversy as he urges governments to leave entities in the energy value chain like VRA, Gridco, ECG to private sector, since government doesn't have the financial muscle to sustain them. But is privatization the way to go? What has been the effect of early attempts at privatizing some of these state-owned institutions? We'll interrogate these and many other issues coming up on the AM show. But that's not all.
Oh, yes, there's still more because you want to stay for AM business. Mr. Shen, as we call him, will be serving you that later on the show. You can join us with your thoughts and comments later on the show. In fact, via the live stream, let's know what's on your mind. And when we activate the phone lines, be sure to give us a call. We love you. Thanks for staying with us. Up next,
the news. Let's get into it.
You are not...
Should I sit? This is the AM News. Welcome to the program. Let's begin. President Akufo-Addo has, for the first time, admitted to the challenges in the energy sector that has forced many to live without electricity, sometimes for days, and has grounded a halt some businesses that are heavily dependent on electricity. He was speaking at the recommissioning of the Ameri Power Plant, which is now called Kumasi 1 Thermal Power Plant in the Ashanti region.
It is my expectation that with enhanced electricity supply, these enterprises will expand and offer further employment opportunities to our youth. Ladies and gentlemen, in the course of the last 7 years, my government has had the opportunity to translate promises and assurances into result-orientated projects, especially as the Ghanaian people have in clear and absolute terms demanded results that will transform the country for all. One such commitment is the delivery of affordable and reliable electricity to drive our nation's industrialization agenda and position Ghana to become a net exporter of electricity in the ECOWAS region. Our national electrification rate of 88.8% is one of the highest on the continent, and the goal is to have full electricity access by the end of this year. In the areas of power generation, transmission, and distribution, my government has made and continues to make significant investments towards the provision of reliable and competitively priced electricity to assure economic growth. This is part of our commitment to realizing the 2030 United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. I do acknowledge Regional Minister for Energy, ladies and gentlemen, and Nananom, The challenges that the people of Ashanti and indeed of other parts of the country have had to endure in very recent times over the supply of power. And I can only thank you for the patience you have exhibited in the face of these challenges.
Now, Energy Minister Matthew Opoku-Prempeh took on naysayers who, he said, doubted they could pull this project off.
Now, the Dankwa Kufuadunti, ebi esi ene no kre obinya sebia anko obeye obinya sebia o tibi nya binti ena de osua wasa no osa no achia nepa Ghana bari bebre adwo we bi esi ho eso bi amusa se aden na ekọ ho ebi se soja ama Ghana hira esi wa kosombo Kwame Nkrumah breso esi wo akuse champo abreso ebua esi wo bui president Kofo abreso esi ewo takrade president Ronald abreso ade na do Dankwa Akufo-Addo de esi de esi Kumasi a o se Kumasi fo ade na ye bie da bi Ghana na ye chechire Ghana na ye chechire sa ene awie ya ba he sa anyinam kane ya ye bie he sa de VI fo ka ye no sa anya nukrani brodibaka efri 2014 ana Greek of the VI fo nyina hu se pese anyinam kane agina ya e wo se hia se eye bi wo Ghana mfimfiri ha asanteman mu nyina enso so menka se obi mpeso oye o de waye ne ye bodidin de waye enna na do Dankwa Akufo-Addo.
Moving on, the Free SHS initiative stands as a prominent political campaign commitment in Ghana's Fourth Republic, ranking at the forefront of the Akufo-Addo's administration flagship programs. Moving forward to 2024, both President Akufo-Addo and Education Minister Yao Osei-Duchum have claimed that the total number of beneficiaries has surpassed 5 million. But how accurate is this arithmetic? Joy News Research Desk has more in the following analysis.
The Free Senior High School initiative stands as a prominent political campaign commitment in Ghana's Fourth Republic, ranking at the forefront of the Akufo-Addo administration's flagship programs. The program's implementation began in September 2017, targeting first-year students in public senior high schools and technical vocational institutions. Importantly, any Ghanaian child placed in a public second cycle institution through the computerized school selection and placement system during the 2017 school placement process became entitled to benefit from the Free Senior High School initiative. By December 6, 2017, the Ministry of Education's program-based budget revealed that a total of 359,023 beneficiaries were enrolled in the program. These included first-year students in public senior high and technical schools, consisting of 117,926 day students and 241,094 boarding students. Moving forward to 2024, both President Akufo-Addo and Education Minister have made claims that the total number of beneficiaries have surpassed 5 million. This assertion has sparked controversy and raised questions about the accurate count of beneficiaries since the program's inception. During the launch of the Smart School project on March 25th, the president, when he mounted the stage to speak, reiterated the total number of beneficiaries under the Free Senior High School program.
5.10 million children having so far benefited from this SHS policy since it was instituted in September 2017.
On the same podium, the president and his education minister could not sing from the same hymn book as they gave varying accounts of the total number of beneficiaries under the program. In fact, there was a discrepancy between the figures provided by the president and his education minister, Dr. Yao Osei-Duchum.
When it was said Free Senior High School was impossible, the government went ahead to prove otherwise, and today, some 5.7 million children who are our own children brothers and sisters have benefited from the program.
The difference in numbers has raised suspicion regarding the actual total number of beneficiaries under the free senior high school program, adding to the existing confusion surrounding the reported figure of 5 million beneficiaries. Let's approach this analysis by focusing on one of President Akufo-Addo's statements.
Some 503,000 children enter senior high school this year, the highest ever enrollment of children into senior high school in a single year in our history.
This raises significant question. If the current enrollment of 503,000 is indeed the highest in Ghana's history, then how is it possible for over 5 million children to have benefited from the program in just 6 academic years? Unless the government is using a different methodology, it is difficult to understand how the total beneficiaries in 6 years could surpass 5 million when the highest enrollment in the period under review does not even reach 600,000. Even if the highest enrollment of 503,000 was recorded in all 6 academic years, the total number of children covered by the free senior high school program will not exceed 3.1 million. In fact, according to data from the Free Senior High School Secretariat, the total number of enrollment, including both senior high schools and technical and vocational education training from 2017 to 2021-2022 academic year was 2,089,430. Even if we generously use the president's highest enrollment figure of 503,000 for the remainder of the years, the total number would not still add up to 5 million mentioned by the president and his education minister. So, how did the government arrive at the 5.7 million total beneficiary statistics? Could it be that each child was counted multiple times for each year spent under the program? Definitely, government needs to provide a transparent explanation for these arithmetic discrepancies.
So there you have it, fact-checking the free senior high school policy. But in other news, the National Petroleum Authority, Custom Preventive Service, the National Security and other stakeholders are racing against time to salvage crude oil from a vessel reported to have split up en route to Tema. The incident is reported to have occurred on Friday around Old Ningo, where the vessel was forced to do an emergency docking while on its way to offload crude oil at the Tema port. Public Relations Officer of the National Petroleum Authority, Abdul Kudus Mohammed, tells Joy News evacuation efforts are still underway to prevent a possible spillage.
The information I have does not speak directly to the reason for the problem that the ship developed. It says that we had an information, or call it a request, for an emergency evacuation of the crude oil in that vessel because of the mechanical fault that it generated, and that would not allow it to reach its intended place for betting and discharging. And so the approval was granted to their request, and the relevant organizations that play role in this particular matter of fuel importation and discharge were all invited and played various roles in having to have the product evacuated. So it was the crude oil meant for one of the refineries in Accra, and so after the permission was granted, PRVs were arranged by the refinery to have the fuel evacuated to the intended location, that is around Sprintex by Aquaba refinery. And so basically that was that they needed the approval. The approval was granted. The evacuation was actually being done, and that was to salvage the product from actually going waste.
Now, government has commenced an active search for private partners to help complete the abandoned Saglemi affordable housing project commenced under the ND's NDC administration. The project has been entangled in allegations of corruption, with the former Works and Housing Minister Collins Dauda standing trial. The project, which is at various stages of completion, have had some fittings, including burglar-proof materials, plumbing works and others. At the sites, either vandalized or stolen, government is targeting about $100 million from private sectors. Now, speaking at an event to invite proposals from the private sector, Kojo Nkrumah said Ghanaians were tired of abandoned housing projects when the housing deficit is ballooning.
I want to ask you to execute this task with the highest level of patriotism and professionalism. So I want to ask you to bring to this task your highest level of patriotism and professionalism as it is deserved or required. Let the desire to do our best for our republic show as you go through this process. My final point to you is that Ghanaians want the phenomenon of uncompleted or abandoned mass housing projects to come to an end. To date, some of the projects from the Kufuor era are still uncompleted and hanging. This one is still yet to be completed. And it adds to the narrative that we don't finish projects when we start. If we have a housing deficit of 1.8 million that we are trying to reduce as the years go by, already there are about 40,000 units a year that we deliver as a country. It's not enough to close the gap. So if all of these projects keep hanging out there, it will even deter future projects from being embarked upon. And that's why it's important that we take advantage of this opportunity to reverse this trend. And so I charge you to go through this process with all the professionalism, patriotism, and transparency as you have outlined in your report to me.
The Ghana Armed Forces say ending stereotyping and having more females in the force requires a holistic approach with the support of other stakeholders, including families. At a sensitization campaign in Sunyani by the Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Training Center on career opportunities within the Ghana Armed Forces, Colonel Dr. Mohammed Wombe, Command Logistics and Gender Advisor at the Army Training Command in Teshi, Accra, says steps have been taken paving the way for females in the force to rise to the top and therefore encourage more to join. Precious Semevo has more.
The Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Training Center and the LC Initiative, in collaboration with the Ghana Armed Forces, have sensitized over 500 selected students from schools in the Bono region, including St. James, Odumasiman, and host Sunyani Secondary School, on career opportunities and misconceptions about taking up a career in the forces. Adelaide Otu, Senior Program Officer, Women, Youth, Peace and Security Institute at KIPTC, said the sensitization focused on implementing the United Nations Security Council resolutions 1325 and 2250.
Specifically on issues of peacekeeping, we seek to promote the implementation of the agenda by ensuring that we have women forming part of peacekeeping operations. So that is why we are here working with the armed forces, encouraging young girls to join the armed forces, but to also join through the combat and combat support roles, because that gives them new opportunities and actually greater opportunities in building a career within the armed forces that will ensure that we can get these young girls, when they join the military, to grow through the ranks and attain leadership positions.
CPO-1 Lydia Ya Eninfo, sharing her experiences in the Navy, said disciplinary standards motivated her to join. She charged the students to embrace the opportunities in the forces that also enhance family life. Colonel Dr. Mohammed Wombe, Command Logistics and Gender Advisor at the Army Training Command in Teshi, Accra, said all hands should be on deck to end stereotyping women who desire to join the forces.
Probably when we finish with the second cycle institutions, we will begin to go to the general public, even reaching out to families, because we reckon that our traditional value system and our traditional customs creates fertile ground for some of these stereotypes. But with education like what we have done, it is possible that we can overcome. The military itself as an institution has its own values, customs and tradition, which we are making conscious efforts to overcome, to make way for the female to participate in decision making.
Here are some of the students.
With this meeting we had, I've gotten a lot of courage.
At first I heard you can't get married when you go into the military service. But now I know you can get married. You can engage in family activities.
Precious Semevo, Joy News, Sunyani.
But still on empowering women, a new research initiative has been launched to monitor and empower young women in the creative arts sector, aiming to build their capacity, promote female participation and leadership. The research being carried out in 7 African countries seeks to transform the industry into a gold mine for young women, emphasizing capacity building and collaboration with policymakers and industry stakeholders. There's more in this report.
Ghana is Gold Coast, yes, but the creative sector is also a gold mine because of the potential it has to offer. But how are women doing in this sector, specifically young women? And this is the objective of the research. We know that
an associate professor at the University of Cape Coast and former director of the Center for Gender and Advocacy and Research Development at UCC, Professor Georgina Odro, outlining the aims and impact the research will have on the creative arts sector, especially on young women. She says the broader goal of the research is to turn the industry into a gold mine.
Another key objective has to do with the young people themselves. So the research aims at building their capacity, and you realize that it's on gender, but we have both men and women, so it's not skewed to only women when it comes to the participation. So this is going to be a 3-year project. We are now starting in 2024 and hope to end in 2026. And in this room, we have policymakers like the Ministry of Gender, because we are looking at gendered phenomenon. We have the National Youth Authority, because we are looking at young people. We have the creative sector, because it involves them. And the reason why we have these policymakers in this space is so as to inform policy. We don't want a research who will be shelved at the end of the day, or just for academics to write our academic papers, but to inform policy, to inform advocacy.
A senior research scientist at the International Center for Research on Women, Marian Oma, underscored the impact of the research, considering how she says women are marginalized in the sector.
So there is Ghana, Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda, Ethiopia, Senegal, and Nigeria. And so what we know is that it's a growing industry. It's $1 billion industry, a really large industry. But then women who get their livelihood out of this sector may not be getting it to their full, So with this project, first of all, we aim to equip young researchers, especially or the youth, youth researchers with skills, knowledge and capacity to carry out research with a gender lens. Second, we hope that the research findings are going to inform policy in the various countries.
The creative arts players share their perspective on the entire project.
So as creatives, we suffer a lot in the industry when it comes to allocation of budgets, when it comes to even attention on us. But I feel like creatives are doing so much to help alleviate all the stress that is on us as Ghanaians. So I feel like with this project, what we are seeking to particularly do is to amplify the voices of creators and to create jobs.
We live in a generation where social media has taken over, and almost everybody wants to be that next influencer, everybody wants to be, and so there need to be a proper programming, proper policing, so that all genders have a fair share, so it doesn't look like one gender has an upper hand even in that sector.
Once this research is about women, it's going to help us identify such women in the industry and give us opportunity to have a lot of people to look up to in the industry, because there are a lot of people who want to do stuff in the creative industry, but they don't know who to look up to, who to talk to, or who to go to.
From the institution I come from, the National Commission on Culture, which is a policy-making institution, we believe that the project and the outcome would serve as a very significant source to inform policy formulation and even to the extent of legal frameworks within the creative space in Ghana.
The research project Outdoored is expected to explore multiple methods to reach outcomes that will enhance the growth of the creative arts sector.
And now for our final story for this bulletin, let's do Tech Thursday. Ghanaian primary and pre-tertiary students have started building robots that can compete on the global stage through the study of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics education. With STEM education having been identified as a subject that sharpens the mind of students, these children have also developed easy-to-play mobile games and are hoping to win gold for Ghana when they represent the country at the 2024 VEX Robotics World Championship in the United States later this month.
Artificial intelligence has taken the world by storm. Our everyday lives are gradually being influenced by AI. STEM education has started gaining grounds in Ghana, with kids being taught how to build robots from an early age. Through hands-on experience and guidance from dedicated coaches from Bountiful STEM Educational Foundation, these kids have honed their skills in coding, engineering, and problem-solving to develop sophisticated robots capable of competing at a global level. They are confident of their chances when they participate in the 2024 VEX Robotics World Championship.
Well, to compete with other people from all over the world, I think us as Ghanaians, we are going to do very well. We've been practicing and we've been training for so long that I think when we go there, we are really going to be able to perform. We were in a whole team. The team, everybody has their specialities. We have drivers, we have designers, we have their builders. So like everybody with their own speciality. All the drivers went to one side, all the designers went to one side, and all the builders went to one side. Because I'm a designer, me and my other colleagues who are also designers, we designed these ideas. We then gave the design to the builders to translate it into the physical VEX pieces. After that, we all came together to build the robots. This robot was built in 3 parts: the drivetrain, the bucket, and the roller.
When I started, I was taken to VEX IQ. So I wasn't able to go for the competitions, but all I can see, we built something that was like, let's say, a robot moved. So we attached wheels under it. So for a standing figure, I would have looked like this, which will be moving, could talk, and then sense other people around it.
So far, we've been creating robots. I've created a drivetrain, a clawbot, and then last year the competition we went, yes, I was part of the builders who made that robot, and then this year too, I helped build the robot. I want to become a specialized engineer in the future.
Co-founder of Bountiful STEM Educational Foundation, Seth Ogoayim, expressed satisfaction with the progress STEM education has made in Ghana.
Most parents are enrolling their children because, one, they've seen improvement not only because of COVID. The kids are developing critical thinking skills. They are becoming good at managing their time and resources and continued learning. And most important, our program teaches the children to be able to overcome challenges. Even when there's failure, it's part of the program for you to understand. And then we have this principle that each child have the opportunity to grow. So over the year, it's not about just going for the competition. We're preparing these students to be a critical thinker, problem solver, and most importantly, lifelong learners.
The parents of some of the children enrolled at the Bountiful STEM Educational Foundation have seen positive changes in their kids' attitudes towards studies and the ability to build robots and develop mobile games.
Yeah, so for the girl, when she came, so they had to download some softwares. And that was the beginning of their coding. They downloaded some softwares called Scratch. So she started using it to learn how to design video games. So in the house, she was able to design some video games for the younger brother to play, right? And they also learned how to, I think that was part of engineering, build small cars, build. So you see, they've taught them to, and I remember the last time we were going, they were saying that they should find problems in the society. So they're looking at what problems are there and how will they solve those problems.
I think the experience has been very great, very, very great in terms of their mental capacity to think and the ability to do homeworks even without supervision. So I think that is a very nice program. This program, when you actually join this program, is not just merely learning technology, but it's more like learning project management and technology in addition.
As they set their sights on the competition ahead, these students are poised to make their mark on the world stage, proving that the future of robotics belongs to those who dare to dream and strive for greatness.
It's good to see Ghanaian students making great strides in the world of technology. Thanks for staying. It's the end of the AM News. Up next is the news review. Please keep watching.
Welcome, Black. We're glad to have you back on the AM show. And it's time now for the news review. I'll be introducing our guests shortly, but joining me in the studio, of course, Sweetie Abochi. We do this together. But helping us bring you this segment every morning, Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, they're offering you the same. Every weekday morning, we bring this to you. Why are you not taking advantage? If you're a man, prostate screening for free. Just get yourself checked. You never know what could be happening with you. If you're a woman, fertility screening for free as well. You never know what could be happening, especially if you've never given birth, you know? So why don't you get yourself checked? Just head to any of the branches of Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. And fortunately, they have many of those. Let's start with Accra, Spintex, opposite the Shell signboard. That's where you can find them. In Kumasi, Kronum Abwehia behind the Angel Educational Complex. In Takrade Anaji Estate, in Tema, there's Community 22. There's Techiman Hanswa and Isiama and Zima. You can also reach them via phone on 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. But just the start of the news review. Joining us in the studio, he is former president of the Ghana Journalists Association. We give you Afil Money. Looking all blue this morning. And of course, Sweetie Abochi
yes.
is also on. I see. Okay, so I'm looking maroon. Yeah. You are all blue.
Green.
Army green. And I feel like the odd one out.
And I was spotting some fatty chicks.
It's good. Joy is good for men.
Yes. It
is?
It's very good.
Well, you see, no matter how chaotic the system is, we call ourselves joy, right?
Joy,
so we must
radiate
that.
Joy. Yeah.
Sweetie, would you like to
get
find
started?
Out from Money what we...
So we do this thing on the show where we give you a minute or two to talk about anything that's topical that you would want to respond to. So what's on your mind this morning, Doc?
The launch of the 75th anniversary of the Ghana Journalists Association. Okay. As a member of the Media Fraternity, right. I'm inclined to bring it to Reform Banner. And yesterday we were fortunate to have Sam Jonah.
He had a lot to say, didn't he?
He had a lot to say.
So there's a lot of that here.
Yes, well-crafted speech. The timing was right. The point he raised were absolutely on spot. And he challenged the media to live up to expectation. One point he made was that journalists should rise above fear. And once you are shackled by fear, it weakens your resolve to do anything right. And we come a long way from yesteryears when we're shackled by fear, when we're constricted. I remember my days at GBC, it was even an offense to play gospel music at the time. In this item, the contents was determined, even the editing was done by officialdom. It was just there, and it was criminal to even raise a dissenting view on anything nationalistic. So we've come a long way from years, those hellish years. Now we are in an era of freedom. We still have some challenges. We are not out of the woods yet. So, but the appeal to all journalists that this profession is not for the chicken-hearted or lily-livered. This profession is for courageous,
chicken-hearted, lily-livered.
Yes. courageous, brave. And I like your motto, fearless and independent journalism. So all journalists should adopt, imbibe, and display this fearless streak and independence in whatever we do. And Ghana will be on a different trajectory of development altogether.
And that's what we pray for. And that's why we've put on ourselves that tagline. Independent, fearless, credible. Anyway, Sweetie Abochi.
So let's get into the newspapers because there's a lot happening. And the front page of the Daily Guide newspaper brings some sort of smile to my face because We were talking about this all over last week and this week. I mean, last month, I think, this case of missing biometric voter registration kits. So on the front page of the Daily Guide newspaper, the headlines, 4 caged over missing EC equipment. Tamale delegation visits Munster to strengthen ties. Nana appoints new accountant general. Let's support women. That's according to Dr. Mahmoud Baumia. And man remanded for robbing ex-second lady. I'll start with the story on page 3. That is 4 caged over missing BVR kits. 3 employees of the Electoral Commission and a student have been remanded into police custody over the theft of electronic equipment belonging to the EC. So, Philip Latte, who's the labourer, Benjamin Fieyi, security man, Joseph Blankson Edu Maji, who is a database analyst and administrator, and Clifford Yeboah, a student, are accused of stealing 5 Dell laptop equipment from the biometric voter registration kits. The EC officials have been charged with 1 count of conspiracy to steal and 2 counts of stealing, while Clifford Yeboah has been charged with 1 count of dishonesty receiving. So they all plead not guilty to all 4 charges, and the prosecutor, Chief Inspector Christopher Wonder, prayed the court to remand the accused to prevent them from interfering with the ongoing investigations into the theft. Dr. Afelmoni, how do you feel about the story?
The EC was dismissive from the outset when the NDC blew the alarm over the missing laptop. They said they were just mere laptops, which could pose no danger to the upcoming elections. And only for NDC to be persistent in raising this issue to the extent of even coming out with more revelations. So we are happy that the law is taking its course, so we should allow the law to take its course. And one also wonders that EC as a highly security zone, one would expect their system to be tight-proof and not allow such incidents to happen. So they should learn from what has happened. It should serve as a fountain of lessons from which we should drink, so that none of this happens again.
Well, do you want, Benjamin, any quick reactions before we go on?
No, it's fine. I mean, I feel that this election is going to be one of the most crucial that we've ever had. And you want to, as much as possible, avoid any person. I mean, honestly, aren't we tired of the electoral petitions and court rulings? I remember the first time with the Mahama one, it was almost as though you've won, but technically you may not have won. And you are doing stuff, but you're holding back, until the court delivered its ruling. Same with the second one, which was against the MPP. I think we should get to the point where when the EC declares, you can have faith in it and realize this is it. And some of those little chinks in the armor, electoral violence, BVDs or laptops with issues. Because someone could say, look, you are saying 5 laptops, but 5 laptops could be the difference between manipulation and no manipulation. So you can't take anything for granted. And we have to get to the point where there is that, because already we have the problem of perceived partisanship as far as the electoral commissions are concerned. It also doesn't help that, let's say, the NDC, when there's an EC that they have brought in, everything the EC does is right.
It's right.
When it's the MPP, everything. So you almost seem to see, look at the MPP's positioning on this. Oh, but this is nothing. And that creates problems. You can be 100% sure if the MPP were in opposition now and the NDC were in power, the MPP would be saying, hey, these laptops. And so once there is that, you must ensure that you are way above the board so that no one can have even a scintilla of whatever accusation against you. Else, we'll be walking the tightrope. That's my
absolutely.
Already there's voter apathy clouding the elections, and so I think that they just thread carefully not to plant any doubt in the minds of Ghanaians to ensure credibility. That's the working word here.
Credibility.
Because otherwise, if there's room for doubts, plenty problems trooping. Right, so on page 6 of the Daily Guide newspaper, I want to do the story about a new appointment of new accountant general, which happened, I think, on Monday or so. So President Akufo-Addo has appointed Kwesi Ejeyi as the new accountant controller and accountant general. His appointment follows the resignation of Kwesi Kwenin Bosumpim from the position. So the new acting CAG assumed office on Monday. Okay, so he assumed office on Monday, April 15th. Mr. Kwesi Ejeyi comes to office with over 20 years wealth of experience in the public sector. And until his new appointment, he was a deputy controller and accountant general in charge of the Treasury. Ajay has served on various boards, including the Ministerial Advisory Board of the Finance Ministry, etc. Is this very welcoming news to you, then?
I don't know whether to call it welcoming. It's just another one of those.
Why are we seeing a lot of these hiring and firing, new appointments? And I don't know if we should be linking them to this election year coming December. There's been a lot of new appointments that's been from the judiciary, even the executive ministers here and there. Dr. Snit.
And some are also resigning, like,
you know,
is it
Snit under questionable circumstances? Yeah.
ECG. Others are also moving away. I mean, is it Dr. Tenkran? He had been at Snit
pumping new
for 7
faces.
years.
Yeah, after 7 years, what's the rush in pumping new faces onto the forefront of these institutions?
The president has the latitude to make last-minute changes because he's a coach and he can best select the team to perform.
Right.
He has about 8 more months for him to finish his mandate, so no one can fault him on that. Okay. But in the case of Accountant General, I think the appointment has been late in coming.
Okay.
The former Accountant General shot himself in the foot when he started to contest parliamentary election.
Yeah.
Yes, so
yeah,
he polluted himself with partisanship, and that attracted calls for his removal. But the president was adamant, and so as the saying goes, better late than never.
Okay. I'll just do some more quick headlines and then we move on to the new finder because we don't have a lot of time. So ECMA pays 71,764 Ghana cedis LEAP money to beneficiaries. Court resigned CID boss, another bench warrant. KGL Foundation hosts Tamale Eid Fest. And Grave Ghana featured partner to offer security solutions. Inflation inches up to 16.5%. Fuel prices go up again. Of course, that happened yesterday or 2 days ago. Any of these stories you want to react to quickly, and then I can read a bit of it before we get into it.
Any upward adjustment in fuel prices it raises questions about the viability of the Go for Oil policy. Many of those who are still questioning why we should go in for Go Forward. Meanwhile, we are told that this has insulated the system from regularly scaling up fuel prices. So, but we are told the Bank of Ghana has decided to shift the Go for Oil policy to the private sector. And our foreign creditors, IMF, has also been raising questions about the Go for Oil sector. The allegations are fraught with all kinds of malfeasance. So these allegations. So they need to take a hard look at this policy so that we are not shortchanged as a nation.
Yesterday I was interacting, you remember, with the Chamber of Bulk Oil Distributors. I don't know whether the name is Dr. Fori. I have to check. But, you know, he was saying basically that Go for Oil had not delivered, you know, because back then there was a little difference, and then look at where fuel prices are at again. And you see, we always have to put things in context. What we are paying now for a liter is what a few years down the road we're paying for a gallon. You know, so it's still problematic. We're hoping that, of course, times change. The prices of petroleum products have changed. What we produce is a drop in the bucket because we bring in way more than what we produce and even export. We must find a way somehow. We must, because now we're not doing well when it comes to cocoa. Our production this year is one of the lowest we have ever had in about a decade. It also is tied to galamsey and the wanton activity of people milking the system, including people in government. Let's not hide it. People in government as well. And all you have to do is reference Professor Frimpong Boateng's report and reference what people have said. Forestry Commission, district heads telling you that we are frustrated because you are in the area, you find someone doing the illegal thing, you try to stop the person, then you get a call. Hey, relax. You know, so it's a convoluted problem.
And in every election year, the fight against galamsey, you know, takes a downward spiral altogether. Every election year, and even in the fishing sector, in election years, the people who abuse the law, people who do all kinds of legal fishing are not apprehended. And that is the reality.
This is where we find ourselves. Yesterday, I was interacting with some commercial drivers, and they say that, how is this fair? First, they want to increase fuel prices, transport fares, because fuel prices have gone up. Cost of maintenance products is equally biting hard on them. And Ministry of Transport is saying don't increase. Well, I admit I have to read. I don't know if they've concluded on that meeting yesterday and the outcome of that meeting. But if you're saying they shouldn't increase fuel price, the transport fares, yet you are increasing fuel price. Sometimes they can't even tell. It's just 20 pesos, 30 pesos. By the third time, you realize that it's a cedi more than you used to pay. And so how is the government really... Is the government thinking about them? So one of them was complaining, and we'll bring you that story later on.
But the GRTCC, I mean, there was a meeting and there was talk about the fact that, listen, the last time there was an increment, I think fuel prices had crossed 20 cedis, thereabouts. Until it crosses again, you are not getting any increment. And there was a time too when there was a decrease in fuel prices, and you guys did not decrease. But you see, you have to, and this is where you have to be objective. I agree, because ordinary people picking that trotro or that taxi or that Uber or whatever, Yango and whatever, have to pay through the nose because of the increment in fuel prices. But spare parts. I had, what's the name of that thing? It has to do with the AC and all of that. I think the compressor. If I tell you how much I had to fork out recently to buy a compressor, and this is even what we call home used here, not like brand new, you'd be surprised. A few things I had to do on the car. If I tell you how much I spent, you'd be surprised.
That industry is totally unregulated.
So you have spare part prices that have ballooned by whatever percentage. Payments at the DVLA shot up. Lubricant prices shot up. Insurance has gone up. Fuel prices have gone up. And even if you're going to purchase a vehicle today, the prices have doubled. So you must look at it from both ends. These people who are transport operators, we are not saying they must just anyhow come and just do anything. But at the same time, if you use a car, you know that maintaining a car today is far, far, far more expensive than it was maybe just a few years ago.
Well, let's move on. This is a new Finder newspaper. On the front page, request for proposal for Saglemi housing projects. That is Kojo Upon Nkrumah asking private investors to help. President commissions 150 megawatt plant to stabilize power supply in Ashanti region. I will form a truly representative.
You mean the Ameri plants?
Now it's Kumasi 1 thermal power plant. Asante Hene urges government to allow private investment in ECG, Gridco, VRA. Do you think that we should privatize our electricity company, Dr. Afelmoni, what do you think? Asante Hene is saying that government is not handling it too well, so they should privatize it.
The experts tell us that ownership is a significant factor of industry performance. But the Chinese have found a way of, smashing into smithereens this theory. So what is most important is to get the right people to head the right institutions. It is very, very important. So when just like the computer philosophy, garbage in, you garbage out.
Garbage out.
So, yes. So if you put square pegs in round holes, there's no way
you will.
Yeah, you expect satisfactory performance. So there's a need for appointed authorities to ensure that the right people are put at the right places. And then the core of privatization, we have a culture of chasing state institutions, state property, with disdain, with carelessness. So one way to address this issue is to privatize, wash the state. But we have certain state institutions which have justified state ownership. The state ownership comes with a social safety net. Because once you leave an institution, critical institution, highly sensitive institution to a private sector, the addition to profit, unbridled profit, will cause them to... Yes, so there's a need to take a hard look at all these issues and ensure that the nation...
So I will share my thoughts on that because there's more about that in the papers. I just see one of our listeners, Papa Yunzu Kwanza in Takrady, saying, respectfully, I disagree with the Asantehene on a suggestion on ECG to be given to private investors, to foreigners or local. We can't lose all our state institutions to private investors. I think we have to do away with politics involved in the selection of personnel to manage our various state institutions. That's where the problem is. But you see, I don't know whether first off, fundamentally, I disagree with the Asantehene. And here's why. We already have so much of our economy in the hands of foreigners. In fact, one of the most dangerous, we don't pay attention to it, but telcos. Up until recently, now that we are claiming, we've bought 80.
I don't think Asantehene was specifically calling for foreigners to handle.
No, I get it. Because even that's what this person is mentioning, whether foreign or local. But privatization, whether foreign or local, comes with what you said. Profiteering at a much steeper level. And if you're not careful, what that means, you saw when PDS came in. Why did the PDS fold up? The same ECG thing. And now we had to go through the rigmarole of PDS and now switching everything back to ECG. Look at what it took us, even in terms of cost, stationary. You're now moving from PDS. Do you know how much that cost?
Huge financial loss, PDS.
You know, so the private entity will always look at doing business from a certain profiteering standpoint. The ECGs and the rest are supposed to break even and be able to get a little more and manage their affairs in the interest of the people. It likely means higher electricity costs. People are already, choking. You get it. Our telcos, 80 now we claim is ours. We claim. But if you look at the space, if one entity or two decided we're bailing out or we want to crush you, can you imagine what Ghana will be like in terms of telecommunications? The service industry, most of them are owned by private enterprise, usually foreigners. If we go this way, what next? Water? I don't think, and I honestly don't think as of now, we have the hands or the entities with a proper conscience to manage. That is local privatization of ECG. So let's keep things as they are. And like you said, get proper leadership.
Leadership.
One thing that baffles me, and this is how I'll end. Samuel Dubik Mahama has done well, the ECG boss, with getting what the ECG is owed, people paying their bills and all of that. In other aspects, he may not have fared so well. So what more can he do better? Those are the things we should look at, not this bit about privatization. I am not for it, because then all the tools of your economy could be in the hands of either local private entities or foreign private entities. That is very dangerous on national security grounds. Incredibly dangerous.
And the Chinese model should serve as a fountain of blessing. We can look at the Chinese model, a combination of private and state, without losing the state, losing its control over certain key institutions.
Right. Let's get into your newspapers. Ben, do you want to do that?
No. Let's let him.
The Ghanaian Times has its one story, 9-party alliance for revolutionary change to contest 2024 polls. And according to Alan Chermantin, who has the change, they are in to produce the first independent president in the history of this country. The story said that 9 political parties, groups have allied to contest the 2024 presidential election to break the dominant duopoly in Ghana politics from the New Patriotic Party and the National Democratic Congress. The alliance spearheaded by the Movement for Change, a political movement founded by Mr. Alan Chermantin, a former Minister of Trade and Industry, and a leading member of the MPP, is under the umbrella Alliance for Revolutionary Change. And the alliance realized its objective by advocating for fundamental constitutional reforms, including but not limited to reforms in governance, public sector, accountability, management of our natural resources, as well as the mindset and attitudinal change in Ghana.
Did they stand a chance?
Lofty dream, but it's a distant one. We need to square their dream to the logical reality, and the reality is that Ghana is not yet ripe for an independent president. That is the reality.
But it's a step in the right direction.
It is a step in the right direction. NDC NPP need to be given some hot chase for them to... The complacency is too much on the part of NDC NPP.
Yeah.
One can easily predict that it will rather be NDC or NPP at any given election. And the 8-year factor is also real. So we commend Alan Chairman for injecting dynamism into the political system. While we are proud, we also need to filter the objective of this alliance through the lenses of reality. And the reality is that it's not his time yet.
In fact, it ties into a story in the Daily Graphic newspaper. Our former first representative government in nation's history. And according to the story, the founder and leader of the movement for change, Alan Kwadwo Kyerematen, has pledged to lead a government that represents all segments of the country if elected as president in the upcoming presidential election. He said the divisiveness in the country's politics, driven by the duopoly of the ruling NPP and the main NDC, was the major destabilizing factor. And the interesting bit is the Alliance for Revolutionary Change. You know, the last time Dr. Abu Sakara Foster was here, I was telling him they are very close to something else we've had in our history. AFRC,
yes,
Armed Forces Revolutionary Council, but they are ARC. But what do you think about that alliance, though? That alliance, what do you make of it? Do you think it's... Because they are still looking for other people to come on board.
They are still looking for other people. Abu Sankara, daughter, is a fantastic material. So is Alan. They make a very good pair, but the viability of the alliance is something which is still questionable.
Global Info Analytics conducted a recent survey where, per the figures, the former President Mahama was getting 53+%. Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia was getting something north of, is it 39 or 34%? And interestingly, Alan Kyerematen was securing about 7% of the vote. Some have questioned whether that could happen, because if it did, it would spell doom for either the NDC or the NPP. You know the margins by which elections have been won in this country. Could be a precarious one for them. But anyway,
NPP has come out to rubbish the latest findings by for analytics, and so let's see what happens.
Right. I'll just do the story and then we can move on to other papers. I have just the Daily Graphic. Journalists must be fearless, Sir Sam Jonah says. A statesman said Dr. Sam Jonah has called on journalists to be fearless, courageous, and not compromise when defending the national interest. You've spoken about that already, so let me not belabor the point. On the international front, page 5, constitutional changes, presidential power grab, Togolese opposition. This is an interesting matter where in a number of years, while they are saying it's rather making the president less powerful, in effect, it is not true. And in coming years, then he becomes the leader of parliament in a way, becoming prime minister. You know, I think since 1967, his father and he himself have led Togo. You know, the Olympio story and the others. And now, 67 till 2024, one family. Father to son. Also reminds you of Equatorial Guinea. Teodoro Obiang.
Yes.
I'm done with it.
Okay. Do you have any more papers, Doc?
Still, the Times.
Or you want to get into the Times?
Times, Western Housing Ministry invite me to revive Saglemi housing projects.
Right.
And I think we owe Kojo Nkrumah, former Minister of Information, a debt of gratitude. We ought to sprinkle a good dust of commendation on this young man for injecting dynamism into the ministry and attempted to revive this Saglemi housing project.
Yeah, that's an
which
important
has
story.
Suffered from backward political decisions. So backward that we have
But can we redeem Saglin as of this point with everything that has happened?
I think
the bits lost. You know, Sam George came into my studio and said, people are basically taking lock, stock, and barrel. Things in there, from toilet bowls to doors to fittings. Like,
But if we have private investors,
the shell that
can,
is there,
they can do it. They can make it work.
Yeah, they can make it work.
They get the funding and the commitment, and it seems like, I mean, I don't know what is in mind. You know, you can't tell what's on his mind, but he seems like he wants to do something about it.
Yeah.
So we can just watch and see.
Yeah.
Francis Asenso-Boakye, who was in there, was talking about this privatization. But do you know what that means? Basically, I mean, the idea was moving off. We can't, it's been said that we might have to spend another whatever fixing this, but it's also because we left it to deteriorate to the point it has got to now, which means that by the time this is done with a private entity, it's not going to be affordable to anybody. It's only going to be affordable for the elite.
Certainly, the private investor will have to recoup his investment. And so it will mean pricing the houses above the pocket of ordinary man. They go ahead and do it.
It still would be put to some use. I choose to think that it won't go waste because it's been lying there for years and it's not going anywhere. So it's still something that we can look back and say, at least he completed the Saglemi housing project. And at least that project has been put to some use. So I think we should just give Kojo Oppong Nkrumah the benefits of the doubt and see where he takes this.
And the media will also sharpen their focus on this project. The media should sharpen their focus on this project.
And we have done, what have we not done here in this media house on Saglin? What have we not done? We have done practically everything. But let me just end by saying that how many months are left in 2024?
And 7?
6.
6. Okay.
Nothing much.
Words. 7.
Nothing much can be done on Saglin between now and the end of 2024. Reality.
The takeoff is good. Kojo has taken off.
That's why I was citing Francis Asenso-Boakye. Before him, there had been talk and a pushback. But let's see how it goes.
Let's see.
I guess we'd have to run. Anything else to add?
No, that's it for me. Yeah.
Okay.
Let's go.
Afeomoni, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
It's a pleasure. And
unless there's something...
And this place is like heaven.
Oh, you like the new studio?
Yes, a glimpse of heaven.
Thank you. I like that. Yeah.
I think we should use that as a caption. New Joy News studio. A glimpse of heaven. Anyway, Afeomoni is former president of the Ghana Journalists Association. He joined us for this review. And of course, the forest green, pearl wearing, green spectacle rocking Sweetie Abochi was in here with us as well. Right before we go, let's quickly acknowledge Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. They help us bring you this segment every weekday morning. They're offering prostate screening for free if you're a man, fertility screening for free if you're a woman. Reach out to them at any of their branches. They are in Accra, Spintex, opposite the Shell signboard, Kumasi, Kronumabwe here, behind the Angel Educational Complex, Takrady Anaji State, Tema Community 22, Techiman Hanswa, and the Siama Nzima. You can reach them on 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Sweetie, are you ready? Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic.
The end to chronic disease.
But the start of sports. And yesterday, it was a drawn match. But
I didn't watch the jubilation when Man City faced Real Madrid.
Real Madrid
won. It ended
on penalties.
1-1. And Rodrigo netting in the 12th minute. Manchester City coming on. And then it went to penalties. And 3-4. Manchester City tasting defeat.
And you should look out for all the details because Muftau Nabila Abdullah is bringing it to you.
In fact, I wish I could.
Have to go.
In fact, I wish I could be here with him and do the analysis. But Muftau will be back up next. Do stay.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to AM Sports here. I am Muftaru Nabila Abdullahi. On April 23, the National Chief Imam will be celebrating his 105th birthday. And on the Sunday of that, Kumasi Asante Kotoko will come up a great Olympics as part of the birthday activities being put together by the National Sports Authority and some partners in honor of the Chief Imam. Let's hear from the board chairman of the National Sports Authority, Seth Panwoon, who has been speaking about the reason behind their decision to play a march in honor of the Chief Imam.
In recognition of his long-standing years and service to Ghana and to mankind, 105 is a milestone. You know, when we went to have the discussion with him, he took us through memory lane, engaged us in a conversation of history from a period that some of us were not even born. You know, and the conversation was so lovely that we got to learn a lot in the few minutes that we had with him. And he never seized the opportunity. You could just know that the man is a symbol of peace. He never seized the opportunity to tell us the significance of living together, devoid of our political affiliations, devoid of our religious affiliations, devoid of our tribal allegiances. You know, he's preached peace and told us that, look, he reminded us that we are going into election 2024. And he doesn't want to see blood, to see death, to see injury associated with choosing the next leader of the Republic of Ghana. And he was very emphatic on this, you know, and you could just know that this is a man born of peace. And we were so delighted that he embraced the idea in totality. He blessed it and gave us the assurance that, in fact, it was our appeal that we want him to be present. He said he was going to be present. We said not only that, we also want him to exhibit the footballing skills he has shared with us, that he was also a sportsman, you know, in his growing years, these early years in life. And he said, he responded to our big brother, Sheikh, that he laughed. And that tells you that he looks at us undermining his energy. He said he is going to be present, and not only that, he is going to kick the ball.
Now we hear from the Director General of the National Sports Authority, Doji Numekevo, who says that his outfit will put the pitch in good shape to be able to host the match.
At the National Sports Authority, we recognize the fact that the National Chief Imam stands for peace. And he is the symbol of everything that this country stands for: peace, unity, dignity, freedom, justice, fairness, and all the good accolades that you can think about. So for us, we are not only honoring him on his on the 23rd, on his birthday, but we are also doing something to bring peace. Because all these beautiful football matches that we see around Ghana would not be possible if this country does not know peace. And so we thought it wise to put this together to honor him and his birthday and to bring meaning to the things that he stands for. So I would want to say here and now that we are ever ready. We'll put all our facilities here at Dakar Sports Stadium at the disposal of the Chief Imam and his people and all the football teams for us to have a very successful game. And I think because it's the Chief Imam, we at the National Sports Council are going to go the extra mile, like we did for the finals of the All-African Games, to make sure that we have a very successful football match.
Let's talk boxing now. And in recent times, Ghana has struggled to lay its hands on a world title. We've had the likes of Richard Common and Isaac Dugbe all try so hard to defend world titles they won, but unfortunately they lost them, and since then they've been struggling to be able to get those world titles back. Well, one man who was part of Richard Common's journey when he became a world champion is Carl Loko. He says that winning a world title is a process and not one-off.
Always we have to understand that to get a world title, a world champion, is a process. It's a process in the sense that you don't just rush a boxer to the world stage, that you just won a world title, so you are just pushing the boxer to be there. With the example of John Lai that you mentioned, I mean, he turned professional at the age of 18 years, and we have kept pushing him over here in Ghana, and now he's in the ranking. So that tells you that we have gradually pushing him through the mill so that he can get to the championship level in time and matured. So if we, the handlers of John Lai, are doing the right thing as we are doing now, we believe he's one of the potential, boys or talents that can give Ghana a world champion, a world title. Because other people also are doing the same, that they are building their boxes. And this advice will go to my colleagues, all the gyms, and even the managers. Because sometimes some of the managers think when they come into the sport, quickly, the bosses should start going out there and fight for them maybe to recruit whatever they have put in. But I'll tell them that it takes a lot. That is why over there in America, in Europe, the difference is you see them becoming a champion more than the way how we have been becoming champion. Because the process is not a short process, it's a long process. So you have to take your time and build the boys to get to the level. You know we have done it before, or I've been part of coaches who have been doing it. And I believe in the patient aspect or the build-up to get there.
Still on boxing coaching, now we hear from one man who has been voted as the UBA president for coaches in Ghana. He is Charles Corte. He says that their role is to support the Ghana Boxing Authority and the Ghana Amateur Boxing Union to ensure that they are able to build the right boxers who can compete against the best in the rest of the world.
GBA and the GBF, we want to work all together. We want to work with them. We don't have a problem with them. We just finished a lesson. We send them a letter. So I think next Tuesday we meet, and we have to see the way forward, because we cannot work alone. We work with the GBA, GBF, all the stakeholders. We have to come together to make sure we raise the Ghana boxing higher. We have to put the Ghana boxing in the limelight. So we have to work together. It's not like we are coming to fight anybody. We are coming to make sure they do the right thing. With the way boxing is going on now, some of us, we don't like it. So we are here to make sure they do the boxing properly.
Okay, Carl, in moving forward, you, for instance, have a boxer who you are training, John Lai, who is a very big prospect for the world stage. If you do an assessment now, how good is Ghana looking for the next stage, or getting the next set of young boxers who will take over from, the era of the Richard Commons, the Isaac Dugbes, and all of those who, and the Emmanuel Tegos, who are currently our topmost ranked boxers?
Yeah.
And that's your sports for now. We do have more sports stories on myjoyonline.com. We appreciate your time.
Welcome back to the AM show. Now, you know that on Thursdays, we bring you AM exclusive. Today, Benjamin Akapo sits with Professor Raymond Atuguba, the Dean of School of Law of the University of Ghana, Legon. It was an interaction on legal education in Ghana, the judiciary, the dispensation of justice, governance, the recent shooting incident in Tema, Dumso, and many more. You want to stay for that conversation. Folks, enjoy the conversation.
Thank you for joining us for another installment of AM Exclusive with me, Benjamin Akakwa. And today I have a very famous guest, at least from my end. He's a man who has done a lot by way of the law and its application in Ghana. Without further ado, I want to give you the Dean, School of Law, University of Ghana, Professor Raymond Atuguba. He joins me for a conversation. Thank you, Prof.
Thank you, Ben, for having me.
It's really good to have you. And you know I'm going to bombard you with legal stuff, but I just wanted to find out, for the rest of us mere mortals, we've been facing Dumso. Practically every area has got its fair share. Yesterday, my light went off twice, but it came back on, to be fair to ECG. Have you experienced the same, or are you living in a different Ghana?
I experienced the same thing.
You do?
Actually, this morning I ran late because we had Dumso, where I stay. And unfortunately for us, the solar panels we use have also gone for servicing. So it's not the entire house that is on solar now.
I see.
And so when the lights went off, the water pump couldn't work, so which meant I had to get a bucket of water to wash down. And I had to figure out how to get my stuff ironed, and it made me late.
How did you manage? How did you get your stuff?
Oh, I managed. I grew up in the village, so I have all the tricks to survive,
tricks, among others,
to survive living without electricity. Yes.
I see. Yes. I see. Interesting tidbits. But let's go straight into legal education in Ghana, and then and now. You know, people would often juxtapose then how it was straight in, and then you get into law school versus what it is now. Has enough changed to make it progressive in Ghana?
The simple answer to your question is that not enough has changed. There is some change, but there's still some way to go.
Okay.
Before 1958, all the lawyers practicing in Ghana were trained outside of Ghana. It was in 1958 that two things happened. The law department of the Faculty of Social Studies of the University of Ghana was established. Incidentally, yes, exactly. So it was a department, a law department of the Faculty of Social Studies in the University of Ghana. This is this university. At the same time, the Ghana School of Law was also established. And the purpose of the two institutions was to train lawyers domestically.
Okay.
So from that time, we started producing lawyers domestically. The reason why I say enough hasn't changed is that when these institutions were established, our first president, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, had a very clear vision for law and for lawyers. That vision had competition from the visions of law as it was operationalized in the United Kingdom and in the United States and other places. But his vision was different. When the first batch of lawyers were graduating from the Ghana School of Law, President Nkrumah attended that ceremony. And on the 4th of January 1962, he gave a speech articulating his vision for law and for lawyers, and therefore for legal education. Let me give you some aspects of that vision, which we are yet to accomplish. He said that he wanted to produce lawyers who were humble, honest.
Why are you smiling like this as you go about this? Humble, honest.
Of integrity and loyalty.
Okay.
And selfless.
Okay.
He wanted lawyers who would avoid, quote, the pursuit of wealth and influence. He wanted lawyers who were people-centered. Nkrumah wanted lawyers who were focused on the hopes, aspirations, welfare, and progress of the people, and wanted lawyers focused on the dignity, freedom, and unity of the African people. Ben, tell me.
I think I should come back to you on that.
Yes.
Do you think we've missed the mark?
We have missed the mark. We have missed the mark by a huge deviation. Let me tell you a few other things in Nkrumah's vision of law and lawyers. He wanted law that was not too court-centric. Okay. In other words, he wanted law to be more preventative than curative. And he wanted law to aid in the growth of the developmental state. In other words, you have a new nation that needs to be developed. Lawyers must use their skills to aid in the construction of the developmental state. Secondly, he had a vision of law that was multidisciplinary. So in that speech on the 4th of January 1962, he said that law does not exist in a vacuum. Okay. It exists in a social setting. Yeah. And so he wanted lawyers that were talented and multidisciplinary so that they can aid in problem solving backed by critical thinking. And finally, he had a Pan-African vision of law and lawyers. He actually stated in that speech on 4th January that he wanted lawyers who would aid in the construction of Pan-Africanism in the United Africa, based partly on our cultural heritage. Ben, I don't think we've realized this vision yet.
It appears we have a very long way to go.
Yes.
But where exactly do you think the departure started from?
Good.
Where do you think it started?
So, when Nkrumah articulated this vision, he also identified the groups of people and individuals that the new Ghanaian lawyers should serve. The departure came when the new Ghanaian lawyers started serving different groups of people, started serving the interests of different groups of people.
Groups like?
Let me name the groups that Nkrumah envisioned. And I'm not making this up. All of these are listed in the speech Dr. Kwame Nkrumah gave on the 4th of January 1958. Sorry, on the 4th of January 1962, when he graduated the first batch of Ghanaian lawyers, fully Ghanaian trained lawyers. He wanted lawyers that would assist African liberation movements, market women, farmers and workers, local government, state corporations, towns and villages with their legal problems. What happened and what created the departure was that lawyers moved to service other agencies and corporations that were not in tandem with this vision of using lawyers to help the developmental states.
But is that not a spin-off of, we've gradually become capitalists?
Yes.
So it is the market forces determine where work is, and where work is, they'll go to big corp.
So Ben, it's not a matter of where work is, it's a matter of national orientation. Okay. Because it is true that there is work for multinational corporations, but there's also work in our towns and villages. The state and individual lawyers and law firms must make conscious decisions on how they aid these bodies with their legal skills. Are you going to use your legal skills to aid a multinational company, poison the waters, poison the people in the village, and go scot-free? Or are you going to use your legal skills, working on both sides, not just for the villages, but also working within the multinational companies to help these people get social justice?
That's an important point to make, and I see how, based on what you've said, we have missed the mark. The question, though, is: do you think we can find our way back?
Oh, definitely.
What will it take?
It's not that difficult, and At this point, I want us to look at our constitutional vision for law and lawyers. Because our constitution also envisions how we should train our young formally in the universities. And that brings me to Article 39 of our constitution. Article 39 of our constitution says that we should integrate appropriate customary values into the fabric of national life through formal and informal education. Now, in the University of Ghana School of Law, we do formal education, formal legal education. What the Constitution requires is for us to integrate into this education appropriate cultural values. Now, that simply means that our education, our legal education, must be domesticated. It must respond to the needs of our society and the people that live in it.
If I asked you how long any administration, it would take any administration, and you see, there's the political end to this, dimension to this, and there is the legal dimension to it. Somehow they've both been interwoven because legal education also has a political tincture. How long do you think it would take to be able to reorient the system and go back to this? Briefly on that point.
It wouldn't take too long. It could take as short as a couple of years. And let me tell you why. From what I'm saying, you might think that we've gotten everything wrong. That's not true. I believe that you and I are sitting right now in the best law school in the entire sub-region. I do not believe that there is any law school in the West African sub-region right now that is as good as the University of Ghana School of Law. Okay, and it means therefore that we are one of the best in the rest of Africa and in most of the world. Okay, so it's not lost. The basics for returning to the right path exist.
Are there, right?
In 2021, November, December, we held here in this school a conference on the future of legal education in Ghana and Africa. I don't know if you remember it. The president launched it.
I remember that.
Yes. The Chief Justice, the Speaker of Parliament, the Attorney General.
The Attorney General was here.
Every mover and shaker in the legal profession and the legal education space, together with law faculties in the sub-region, from Gambia, Liberia, Sierra Leone, we're here, Nigeria, we're here. At that meeting, we agreed that certain things about legal education in the legal profession were not going right. We knew this already as individuals, and it was already in the public space, but we affirmed at that conference that there were certain critical things that needed to be done in order to put legal education and legal profession on a better footing. We talked about the unclarity of policy, because our Legal Profession Act still dates back to the early 1960s. We talked about haphazard regulation. Today, it's law school for 1 year. Tomorrow, it's law school for 2 years. The next day, it's law school for another 1 year. We talked about lowering academic standards, which are created by a curriculum that is not fit for purpose, teaching methodologies that do not respond to the needs of our students and the country, modes of assessment that are basically colonial. So many other issues, the cost of legal education, access to legal education, especially moving from the faculties to the law school, resources. We talked about everything, even low salaries for law lecturers was there. After that, we didn't just stop at talking. From here, the University of Ghana School of Law, we spearheaded the resuscitation of the Conference of Law Deans. We've had a number of meetings and working sessions, and in a few weeks, we are meeting to finalize the reform agenda on all of these problems. And then in December, we are holding a meeting of all law teachers in Ghana. And after that, if we are serious about reforming this, that process can start from early next year, because we'll be ready to change.
Well, which brings me to my next question, and we may have to accelerate so that we can cover all the bases. But then I'll put two things together. Is our legal education suited for purpose? Is it apt? And the small numbers that keep getting accepted into the Ghana School of Law. And then we keep talking about the much touted gatekeeping and all of that. What do you make of these? Is that education suited for purpose, legal education? And why the purported barriers?
So again, the answer is simple. It's not suited for purpose. And again, I go back to our Constitution. Our Constitution in Article 25 is very clear on access for legal education, which comes under higher education for our purposes. It's very clear that once you have the capacity, every person must have the opportunity to undertake tertiary education. And that tertiary education should be progressively free. So our Constitution is clear. However, beyond the Constitution, what is creating the backlog of students waiting to enter the law school derives from a misconception of the number of lawyers in Ghana and their adequacy for our developmental purposes. By the end of 2023, which is just a few months ago, the total number of lawyers, active lawyers in Ghana, was 7,387.
When you say active, they are paid up, they have met all the requirements, they are in good standing.
No, the number of lawyers in good standing is actually less. The number of lawyers who are active...
this is the total, not
yes,
the number in good standing.
This is the total number of lawyers who are active in the sense that they try to interact with the General Legal Council, they try to interact with the Ghana Bar Association, and so forth. So the number of lawyers who are actually practicing is less than this figure of 7,387.
Last I checked, it was around 3,000 something. Is that the figure?
Somewhere there. But for argument's sake, let's still stick with a higher number.
Which is the 7,000?
The 7,000 plus.
Okay.
And then look at the lawyer to population ratio. Because the Magee rule curve, there's a Magee rule curve that determines the appropriate lawyer to population ratio. And it says that 1 lawyer to 250 citizens. Our ratio in Ghana, using the higher number of 7,000 plus, is almost 1 lawyer to 5,000 Ghanaians. So contrary to popular belief, Ghana is completely under-lawyered. And then remember that I am looking only at the 35 million Ghanaians. I have not added 31. Yes, million. But you still make it 35 because the data from the IMF, the World Bank, and all those,
right,
they're different.
I see where you're going.
I'm just using a higher figure,
right,
so that no one undermines our argument by pointing to. Now, if you take those figures and you add the millions of companies, corporations, NGOs, social groupings that also need legal services, the ratio becomes far worse.
Because they'll crowd out
exactly
the general population.
Exactly. And most of them have higher paying purchasing power. And so they would be the preference for lawyers for the services. So Ghana is completely underlawyered. Don't let anyone deceive you that Ghana has too many lawyers or enough lawyers. Let me come to regional breakdown. More than 75% of the over 7,000 lawyers in Ghana are in the Greater Accra region.
More than 70%?
More than 75%. Yes. More than 75%. More than 3/4
of the 7,000.
Of the 7,000 are in Accra. Which means we have less than 25% of the rest of the active lawyers for the rest of the 15 regions in Ghana.
Why do you think that is?
Because everyone wants to be where the money is, where the big companies are, where they pay more. That's Accra. Even Kumasi which is supposed to be a commercial town, it has less than 10% of lawyers. 9.2% of lawyers are in the Ashanti region. If you go to the other regions, even Western region has 1.8% of lawyers. So think about my region, Upper East and Upper West.
If we give what I heard, there was about one lawyer.
Exactly, that's not surprising.
One for an entire, that's madness.
Yes, it's terrible. So Ghana is completely underlawyed. Now, the reason why we think there are more lawyers than we need in Ghana is because we swayed away from Nkrumah's vision. If you are actually using lawyers in the manner in which Nkrumah envisioned it, you realize that you have far less lawyers in Ghana than you need. In the way he envisioned it, each of the over 200 districts in Ghana would have a legal department in their local government offices, aiding the local government to construct the developmental state. We don't have that.
Which then brings me to the question about the drive by the University of Ghana, the School of Law here, to have that multi-purpose, state-of-the-art facility to also encourage more people to get into the study of law. How is this idea conceived? What impact do you feel this facility, when completed, will actually bring to bear? Not just in Ghana, because in the sub-region, a lot of students also come here.
So, by the way, one of the research units in the new building is going to be focused on legal education and how we can reform legal education, not only in Ghana, but in the sub-region and in Africa. So our school has grown a bit in the last 45 years. We used to have 6 programs. Now we have 41. And I mean 41. From 6 to 41, including master's programs, but also a new PhD program, where we are training people for PhDs who can then teach in various law faculties here. And so our students, naturally, have increased. The number of students has increased from 637 to over 2,000. Most of them are graduate students doing master's programs. And then lecturers too have to increase, because the more students you have, the more lecturers you need. We used to have just about 20 active lecturers. Now, if you add full-time, part-time, and guest lecturers, we have over 150. Not all of them are located here. There are people who come and visit from other universities and teach for a while, then go back, and some continue teaching virtually. And also the staff. We now have about 100 staff working to support the work of the university. Because we do hybrid programs, every program has to have, for example, 1 IT staff. And we have like 19 twin master's programs, so that's already 19 IT staff. Now, all of these have to be housed somewhere, okay? And that's why we're building this new state-of-the-art complex. We'll be coming to you for a contribution to the building, by the way. Now, I don't like talking about this project just as an infrastructure project. Because the project impacts directly on the quality of legal education. And the example I give is this. When I'm teaching, I still teach some topics. I move around the class with a microphone for students to contribute. Now, the time I use doing that takes between a quarter and half of my teaching time. In other words, with a state-of-the-art classroom where I don't have to move around with the microphone, I can cover twice as much ground as I do now. So we're using twice as much time to teach than we need to use, because our classrooms are not fit for purpose. So we should not keep looking at the infrastructure project as brick and mortar, but as something that would determine the future of legal education in the country. We do not have enough space even to do the call to the bar. We have to go to National Theatre and rent a place. Even for graduation this year, We're graduating about 1,000 students. The city conference hall here could hold only 800. And that's why our auditorium and the new space holds 1,730 students. It will be the biggest auditorium in the country, bigger than the International Conference Center when it is done.
I see. How are you raising money to embark on this?
Like I said, I'm coming to you for money. So nowadays, all my friends, and all the companies and everybody know that I'm chasing money.
You become a taxman.
I've become a notorious money chaser. And of course, we are targeting various segments, including our alumni. And we have pretty decent packages. I mean, for each alumni, we're asking them to contribute $100 a month for 1 year, which is easy on the packet. And of course, we'd put your name on the donors board in perpetuity at the school. There are corporations, there are state agencies, there are foreign donations. All that would put together help us achieve this vision.
How much in total are we looking at?
So our total endowment fund from which the building is going to be constructed is $25 million.
Okay.
Yeah.
I see. Well, together we'll put that up. We'll get it done.
Mm-hmm.
Let's focus a bit on Ghana's fourth Republican Constitution, and there are crucial angles. In the recent past, I've heard you talk about outmoded and outdated English laws that still persist in our legal system, in our constitution, some dating as far back as the 16th century.
Mm-hmm.
That is 15-something.
Yes.
Why do you feel that is the case, especially when, and in which parts of our constitution, for example, do you see some of this palpably featuring?
So it is the case because after political independence, our first Courts Act in 1960 said that we are going to continue using these British laws in respect of which we don't have local components until the local components are generated. Due to, I would call it pure laziness, we have not constructed the domestic versions of those laws.
Mm-hmm.
And so in 1993, when the new Courts Act was being passed, we still had to continue to enforce some of these British laws called Statutes of General Application. We just need to sit down and do the hard work, generate local laws, and get rid of these British laws. Then, when I read those British laws, I can't even understand them. And I'm a lawyer. They are written in antiquated English, and yet they constitute the law of Ghana. We simply cannot allow this to continue.
How do we change it? What do we have to do? What do we constitute? I mean, because, and that will take me back to the 2010, Constitutional Review Commission. You would feel that those were some of the things that were meant to, but that is also gathering dust.
Yes. We need to do two things. We need to consult on what the law should be and formulate the laws, and we need to pass them. We have a Law Reform Commission. We need to task them to do this work. We had a Constitution Review Commission. I happened to work on that commission. We produced a 1,000-page report covering constitutional changes, legislative changes, and administrative changes, including changes to these laws that we are talking about. We have 12 substantive chapters in that report stating how the executive, the legislature, the judiciary, the public services, the independent constitutional bodies, decentralization and local government, traditional authority, national security, lands and natural resources, human rights, all these we've shown how they can be reformed, including national development planning. The commission was set up by President Mills. We finished the work and submitted it to him. Some months later after that, he sadly passed. President Mahama took over. He set up an implementation committee. A couple of citizens went to court to stop the implementation. By the time the court case was heard and the Supreme Court said everything was legal, President Mahama was out of office. President Akufo-Addo tried to implement just about 10 of the recommendations, which is far too small to date.
How many recommendations were there in all? That 1,000+ page?
Thousands of recommendations, because the recommendations were tailored into 3 categories. The changes that needed to be done to the text of the Constitution, but also the changes that needed to be done to our laws, including these British laws that are still in force. And finally, the administrative actions that need to be taken. It's very easy to change a law. It's just changing the wordings. It's very easy to change the Constitution. It's changing the wording. If you do that and you don't change the administrative practices, you're wasting your time.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's where it is, the systems in place.
The systems.
That is where the real devil is. It's in the detail.
It's in the detail.
Do you think there's enough political will to bring this to bear? Because some have also said that, listen, some of the things in there will not favor the political class, the elite. And so they will intentionally. So you see, you talk about the court processes. 2 questions. 1, the courts in themselves, do they help? For example, and this is an outside issue, but the Daniel Domelevo issue and what happened with his age thing. Look at how long it took the courts. By which time damage had been done before they said that, oh, this was not right. And the man said, you know what? I don't even want this anymore. Cite that together with this instance where it took so long. I don't know, but are we doing ourselves any good with such processes?
Let me tell you something I've never discussed publicly. After we finished the work on the Constitution Review Report, I was asked to continue into implementation. I refused.
Why?
Because I had calculated that the report was what Ghana needed for its governance going forward in the next 50 to 100 years. But that because it was so good, the political class and part of the middle class would continuously prevent its implementation. And I didn't want to waste my life on that. And the chair of the commission is there. He can bear me out. He can bear me out because we had this discussion. And when the pressure became too much, I actually left the country and took up a position outside for the tempers and the pressure to cool. And I consciously refused to attend the implementation meetings. I have always believed that the drive for constitutional reform in this country will not come from the political class, will not come from a segment of the middle class. It has to come from the people who are continuously being subjected to a constitution which is now a danger to our governance.
This conversation on this bit, I don't know when it's going to end, because every time I think of it, I feel the former President Atta Mills did a very good service to the country by instituting that, yet it's still hanging. And only God knows who will come and see to it that, if not all, at least a good number of them are brought to bear. But let's quickly talk about governance. Recently, there was this poll, and some felt, oh, it's not that credible. It's some poll in the UK with a few people sitting there. But it was in the papers about good governance and Ghana ranking first in West Africa. They were looking at issues like corruption, the rule of law, among others. Nowadays, we throw about the concept of rule of law without sometimes a proper understanding. But in terms of governance, you would also recall what Barack Obama said when he came to Ghana. We don't need strong men, we need strong institutions. How do you think Ghana is faring in that regard, in the fulfillment of this, but not just in fulfilling it, in impacting society?
I mean, general governance in Ghana is falling. The quality of governance is falling. And everybody knows that. You have to be really blind or super biased and prejudiced to say in Ghana today that our general governance is not taking a fall. It's taking a big hit and it's taking a fall, and we're going down. My fear is that unless we do something about it soon, we might get to a point where it breaks. Okay? The 1992 Constitution I've always maintained is a
point where it breaks?
Where it breaks, yeah.
It breaks?
Yes. The 1992
That is
Constitution.
disaster.
Yes. The 1992 Constitution, I've always said, is a good constitution. It's one of the best in the world.
The 1992
Constitution. At the time it was formulated, it was perfectly okay for our needs. It was perfectly okay for our wants. Today,
3 decades on,
today the 1992 Constitution is still all right for our needs, but it's not okay for our wants. What the people of Ghana want is real good governance connected also to the economic domain. Ghanaians don't want to wake up to doom so and to experience the crisis I had this morning. Ghanaians don't want to go to bed on an empty stomach. Ghanaians don't want to go to the hospital and have to lie in the pathways. Ghanaians don't want their children to be born in Kolebu in corridors or to die in incubators because the lights go off. That's not what we want.
Poor roads.
Poor roads that create accidents and loss of lives. We don't want that. What I'm saying is that unless we reform our laws, including the Constitution, to start addressing our wants, people may lose faith in the Constitution. And from there, then, God knows where we would go.
Speaking of which, the three arms of government, they come together to, form that intertwined entity, three acting as one for the common good. But how do you think we could reinforce these arms of government in Ghana and make them more effective and efficient? Take, for example, the LGBTQ bill and the open tussle between the executive and the legislature, and now the judiciary has been brought into the fray. So all of them simmering tension, show of power, clerk of parliament presenting the bill. No, you can't present the bill. Go back. For the clerk to now write that, okay, when you are ready, tell me things we've never seen before. How do we get it right on that front?
Ben, the answer to this question you just posed is in the Constitution Review Report. I have always said that all the top 100 governance issues that Ghanaians discuss every day are answered in the Constitution Review Report across time. And let me establish to you how this question you have posed is answered by the Constitution Review Report. The Constitution Review Report examined the implications of Article 108 of the Constitution on financial and non-financial bills, which is at the center of the tussle between the President and the Speaker of Parliament.
Okay.
And the report said that the concept of a money bill must be clarified in the Constitution so that we know the types of private members' bills which are not money bills, which can be processed through Parliament, and those that cannot, except if they come from the President or a minister on his behalf.
So all of this could have been avoided.
All of this could have been avoided if you just simply
private members' bills that have a toll on the consolidated fund.
But as Ghanaians, we love to talk and to keep raising the same issues all the time. It's maybe cathartic, I don't know. The issues are clear, the answers are there, we refuse to implement them, and then we say they are issues. And we are happy to keep them as issues. Because for some reason, it aids our everyday life through all the problems that we encounter.
Getting to the root of the problem.
Exactly.
I see. In dealing with some of these issues, you would go back to the judiciary, the courts. And indeed, that matter is before the courts. But the Chief Justice in recent times came up with the leading justice, engagement, and it's a bit of a novelty having a chief justice, come and basically lay out a roadmap. This is what she wants to achieve. She spoke about things about making the judiciary itself more accountable. She spoke about the delivery of justice and honesty, integrity, some of what you've mentioned. She spoke about, of course, the logistics needed, because among the three arms of government, it is more like you scratch my back, I scratch yours. You approve my budget, I approve yours. We do this and that. What would be your, I don't need you to go into too much of what she said, but what would be your reaction to, first of all, the symbolism of doing that, and secondly, some of what she laid to bear and the practicality of saying?
So the first thing I'll say is that it's a very good initiative. And I remember me as dean, some of our faculty, and some of our students went for the launch of the Leading Justice Initiative, because we wanted also the students to start getting a sense of some of the professions they would be entering into when they leave here. It's a very good initiative. I think it has to be done. I would perhaps add two things. One is the crisis of legitimacy of the judiciary.
Okay.
If you talk to people around the country, and if you look at the Afrobarometer surveys, including on Ghana, there's a significant reduction in the trust dividend of the judiciary.
True.
That needs to be worked on very seriously. Because if you have a people who do not trust the judiciary as much as they should, it means that they are less likely to take issues to the judiciary for resolution and are more likely to seek to resolve them outside of the judiciary and outside of the formal justice system, and sometimes in nefarious ways.
Right.
So that would be an addition to the Leading Justice initiative. The second addition I recommend,
and I think she spoke about that, the trust deficit.
Yes.
As far as the judiciary is concerned, and how to, because obviously, if you see that person delivering justice as not a paragon of virtue, all human beings are, liable to some evils here and there, but you see that person to be above the board and reaching out for what is in the interest of everybody and sticking to what is real, then people would feel that I have a fair chance when I go there.
Exactly. So she needs to continue, but with a vision to arrive at a point where every judge who takes a decision would ask themselves, would this decision breed confidence in the people of Ghana for the judiciary?
Wow.
It is critical.
Every time there's a delivery of a judgment or something, the justice must be thinking of that. We need to get to that point.
We need to get to that point, and very quickly.
But in terms of even the justice delivery system across the country, how many regions have high courts and all of that, and the proximity of courts? But then again, it goes back to the availability of lawyers and all of that. She's spoken about that as well. Exactly. Some points to devolve the system. But without the lawyers, how does that work out?
And that's the second thing I wanted to commend her for. Her decision to get justice closer to the people. I think she's already started opening up some courts. Some Court of Appeal divisions that were previously shut down are being currently opened. That needs to be increased to cover lower courts so that justice is at the doorsteps of the ordinary people. And like you said, if we do that, we then also have to reconsider our mistaken view about an over-lawyered Ghana. The fact is we are under-lawyered. We need to get more people into the law school and out as lawyers so that they can populate these justice delivery mechanisms and so that they can help, as Nkrumah said, the farmers, the market women, and the workers right there in the communities.
But let me bring back, I remember when Sophia Kufu was Chief Justice, there's always been that talk about quality and that you don't want to water down the quality. Is it that these people who are not making it in there lack the quality, or that maybe they are dangerous people? You know how in the medical sphere, for example, if you have someone who is a quack doctor, it's you're putting your life into dangerous hands.
Absolutely not true. There are students here who do not make it into the Ghana School of Law. They go to the Gambia, for example. They qualify as the top law students in the Gambia. They come back here and do the post-call exam, and they are called to the Ghana Bar. The same person who you think is not good enough to become a Ghanaian lawyer goes to another country, doesn't only qualify, becomes top-notch. And if your argument is that that legal system is smaller and less difficult, that argument is defeated because they then come back to Ghana, do your post-call exam according to your Ghanaian standards, pass, and are called to the bar. It's not an issue of the quality of the students.
Okay.
If you have issues with the way in which you examine students, you can never determine which students are good or which students are not good. And Ghana has an issue with the way in which we examine students.
Where you are taking 2 essay type questions, which could come from anywhere.
Yes.
You are studying 6 subject areas. Yes. I mean, it's like literally academically looking for a needle in a haystack.
Yes. Our modes of examination need to be changed. And the Conference of Law Deans have already done a paper on that. We're going to table it at the Conference of Law Teachers in December. If it is accepted, it can then be implemented in all of the faculties across Ghana, so that our system of examining is actually able to determine who is fit to be a good lawyer and who is not. When I finished studies here in Ghana, I went abroad to study. After the first semester exams, there you have an opportunity to meet the professor over your exam, which is something we should be doing here, by the way, so that you don't repeat the same mistakes that you did in the previous. When I met the professor on one of my exams, I was completely shocked. All the time in Ghana, I thought I was good at writing exams. He told me there that my worst performance was in the writing of exams, and that I am the type of student who does better outside of classroom examinations. But I was completely shocked.
Where was this?
This was in Harvard Law School.
Right.
I was completely shocked because there the modes of examining would include just not the end of year exam, but reaction papers throughout the semester, class participation. As the class is going on, they are watching who is participating. So my highest score was actually in class participation, because he told me that anytime he was caught in the middle of a lecture on how to move the lecture forward, he would come to me with a question and use it to move the class. So my highest score was in class participation. And I always thought that I was good at writing exams. So we need to redo our modes of examining students in order to really determine those who qualify to be good lawyers and those who don't. Right now, what we do doesn't achieve that aim. You have very good students who are failing and very bad students who are passing.
And there's also the issue of leakages of some exams, which makes the situation even worse.
I think that's now public knowledge. So
let's talk about, you mentioned the Court of Appeal.
Yes.
In recent times, the president has, put forward some appointments, of course, on recommendation to him, forwarded them. And again, that issue has come up on the back of some of the names and faces that have come up. Oh, stacking the courts. What is the reality from where you sit? And do we need to have a cap, for example, on the numbers? Supreme Court, for example. What's your take?
So my first reaction is that despite all the complaints, the quality of legal education in Ghana is still one of the best in the world. We are complaining because Ghana doesn't deserve even what we have. Our standards should be the best in the world if you're thinking of increments vision. That doesn't mean that we do not produce good lawyers. And so I can say without a shadow of a doubt that all of those nominated qualify for that nomination because those same people are being sought after by other countries, Botswana, Kenya, Zimbabwe, Nigeria, Gambia, ECOWAS Court. They are being sought after because their quality is what? Good. But let me go back to the Ghana that we want. In the Ghana that we want, to attain the status of even a high court judge, not to talk of a court of appeal judge or a Supreme Court judge, the standard must be near excellent. And there are many of the nominees who are not near excellent.
Is that where the problem is?
That's where the problem is.
Is it a political problem?
It could be a political problem because there's some analysis on the political leanings of the appointments. I have done that analysis myself some time ago and had a lot of flack for it. I'm still continuing that work, and it is getting worse over time.
Rulings of
it's getting worse over
which
time.
Party?
I'm looking for the day when I'm leaving the country, and then I'll release it, and then take off with my entire family. So, ordinarily, these people are good because the world needs them. Other African countries need them, so they must be good. But for Ghana, we are looking at people of the caliber of the Ephraim Benjamins, the Apollos, the Archers, the Taylors, and so forth.
The standard bearers.
Yes.
Before we wind down, if we want to keep talking about the courts and our justicial system, will never end. There's an interesting happening, though, in recent times because it also borders on the law and civilian, relationships with the services. That incident, the Plejo Festival in Tema, and what happened, the Navy, and now two people. As of yesterday, I had an interaction with a sister of one of the deceased, whose sister had also taken a photograph of, a small hole in her brother's chest, and a whole long story. But that whole interaction, from Ejisu to Ashaiman to other places, where do you think we're getting it wrong? Is it the orientation? Is it the caliber of people? And the people are seeking justice on this matter.
So, Ben, let me take you back to your very first question to me about the character of our laws. Because this issue is cast in the shadow of our laws. When the 1992 Constitution was enforced, when it came into force on 7th January 1993, it immediately cut down the prerogatives of the security forces. Because now all of their actions had to be measured against constitutional standards, which didn't exist during the era of military rule and before the Constitution. What didn't happen, however, was that the laws and the administrative practices didn't fully change to conform with the new constitutional dispensation. And some of them have since changed because we made a lot of noise about this in the early years when the Constitution came into force. But some of them still persist. And let me give you one example. As late as, I believe, 2018, or maybe even after, the standing orders of the police force, which are the orders which show how...
Now a police service.
Ghana Police Service. Which show how police officers should act in operations, contain Standing Order 97. Standing Order 97 says that when there's a demonstration warn them, an illegal demonstration or gathering, warn them to disperse. If they do not disperse, fire warning shots. If they still do not disperse, fire into the crowd. And by the way, when you are firing into the crowd, Standing Order 97 said, aim for their kneecaps. Ben, this was law in Ghana until we made a lot of noise and they changed it just a few years ago. Think about all the other horrible laws and rules that are still contained in the police standing orders, the police squad notes, and all the administrative instructions that are issued to the police, and which they must go by when they are interacting with us, the citizens, else they'll be summoned before a disciplinary board. In other words, if you're a police officer, prior to 2018, and there was a crowd like that, and you you fired the warning shot, and they were still advancing, you didn't fire into the crowd, or you fired at their tibia and not the kneecap, you can be disciplined for it. We need a lot of work on our laws, beginning from the Constitution right down to our administrative instructions. And I have told you that this is contained in the Constitution Review Report, where we have articulated how the laws on the police and the laws on the military should be revised to accord with constitutional principles. But we've put the report nicely on the desks, and we keep asking the same questions and raising the same issues. Ben, what's wrong with us?
My final bit to you, if we want to go here, will not end, but you're well-traveled. You've seen a lot in other parts of the world. Ghana is 67 years. Is this the Ghana you would have wanted to see? And what would you change about Ghana today if you had the chance to do so? That would be my final bit to you.
So, what I would want changed...
Is this the Ghana you would have wanted to see?
This is not the Ghana.
Years old.
This is not the Ghana I would have wanted to see. 67 years down the line. Ghana still has the same issues that it had when I was a child. Of course, there have been some improvements, but not enough. Given the human talent Ghana has, given the natural resources Ghana has, we should not be here today. And what I want for Ghana is contained in our Constitution. Article 36, 2F. The most secure democracy is one that assures the basic necessities of life as a fundamental duty. The most secure democracy is one that assures the basic necessities of life, not as charity, but as a fundamental duty of government. Thank you.
You're making me think about economic rights. But where some will tell you that, look, I deserve employment. It's my economic right. But we are so grateful that you've taken the time to join us, Professor Raymond Atuguba. And hopefully someday, that work, over 1,000 pages, will be implemented over time, and we all can be better for it. Thank you so much.
We pray. Thank you.
And this has been my interaction on AM Exclusive with Professor Raymond Atuguba, Dean of the School of Law at the University of Ghana. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and hopefully in history, posterity, there'll be something to reflect on some of how we can actually make things better. Legally, governance-wise, and more. Thank you for watching.
agree with you that government should be looking at policies instead of being involved in industry and everything. It doesn't work. And it's about time Ghana realizes that it's not going to work for government to be involved in setting up companies and all those things. It doesn't work. Government should be contained with policies, and then private sector should be involved in setting up industries and everything. It works that way, and therefore you can attract more investment to come to the country, and it creates more employment. VRA and others, our government establishment, let's give it out and divest to public sector, private sector, and then we inject money in that. And get the right people to do it. Greatco and others and all are all for private sector. Let's give them the money, get the qualified people, divest government from it, and let them do it. Other than that, electricity company is in a situation where we don't know, but that also must be divested and give it to private sector. Why are we still holding it when we don't have the money? We are not even able to collect all the taxes that we want. We are going to IMF for money and all those things. We are hanging on to industries that we cannot maintain and run. Look, it's about time we face realities and then decided on what government should be doing and what private sector should be doing. That this is a testimony of private sector investment. And they were able to attract Oppenheimer. His family has all the money in South Africa. They were able to attract him to come here because he believed in private sector. And they've done it in various countries in Africa. So that is how we have to be looking at it, to attract more of these investments into the private sector so we can do it. My son here, when he was, Nanyampo was saying that those small generators and all those are given to Bui and all those things. Go and review the policy and let the government know how to go about it.
Hello, welcome back to the AM show. As you've heard, the Asante Otumfuo say to stroking some controversy there as he's urging governments to leave entities in the energy value chain, that is VRA, Gridco and ECG, to private sector investment, since the government doesn't have the financial muscle to sustain them. But is privatization the way to go? I mean, we've seen this before with PDS that had to be suspended because of allegations of fraud. What has been the effect of these early attempts to privatize them? We'll interrogate this right now on the AM show. My guest joining me is Dr. Steve Mantil. He's a policy analyst with the Integrated Social Development Center. And Mr. Michael Nyantechi is also joining me, General Secretary of the Public Utilities Workers Union. Gentlemen, thank you for joining me. Good morning. Can you hear me?
Good morning. Yeah, good morning.
Great, good. So let me start with you. Is that Dr. Steve Mantil?
Yeah, yes.
Okay, great.
A small correction, I'm not with the Integrated Social Development Center. I used to be.
Okay.
But I'm no more with them.
Thanks for that correction. But I want to start by taking your reaction to these things that the Otumfuo Setutu has been saying. How do you react to this? What are your initial thoughts?
Well, the call calls for a reflection because a lot of the times when we talk about privatization, there seems to be only one type of privatization that comes to mind, which provides opportunities for rent seeking, as we saw in the case of PDS. But there are other types of privatization that work and have worked for this country. Let me say that the reason I will support Otumfuo's call is that we are where we are today because of excessive politicization of the energy sector. And you see this play out in the way ECG has responded to calls for load shedding schedule. If ECG should respond to that call positively, it would mean an admission of the fact that we are in doomsday, which then hands over a certain political advantage or equalization to the opposition party, because this current government has played politics with the sector and had not recently indicated that he leaves the legacy of doomsday to Mahama. and that there will be no Dumsor under his reign. Now, how does the ECG managing director, who is appointed by the president, turn around to act in ways that admit that there is Dumsor, or at least openly admit that there is Dumsor? And therefore, we as the shareholders of the company are being told the entire truth about where we are and why we are here. But recent interrogations of this matter by Parliament has revealed that indeed we have a generation gap, largely as a result of the inability to raise enough funds to procure fuel. And this takes us to the point of a deja vu. In 2015, the World Bank cautioned us, it was actually in 2014, cautioned us of an imminent Dumsor because of government's inability to raise funds to procure fuel. And we got into it. And we are here again. It therefore beggars the question as to how we finance our electricity company. I must admit that the current management of ECG has done a great deal of work for which they deserve to be commended in terms of mobilizing revenue to pay for the electricity supply to them. First and foremost, we saw the establishment of a revenue task force by the managing director, which exhibited some boldness in terms of targeting the big state institutions that owed the most to the ECG, including the airport company, Parliament and other big institutions. And they were able to mobilize some money. They've also digitalized their systems because there was a lot of corruption with the connivance of ECG staff. They've also dealt with the meter shortages in the country and also lack of standardization of these meters, which actually also provided opportunity for rent seeking. 6 companies have been shortlisted to assemble the meters here in Ghana. And ECG doesn't have to pay for it outright. The cost of these meters supplied by these companies are to be recovered over time. So these are all initiatives that bodes well for the sector. But you ask yourself, why is it that after doing all these remarkable things, the ECG managing director stands vilified because he has not been able to openly admit that there is Dumsor?
Okay.
This is because of the politics that we play with the sector.
All right, Dr. Manthio, please hold for me. Those are very insightful thoughts there. But let me now bring in Justice Kojo Yaoche, who is with Africa Center for Energy Policy. You've been following the conversation, Justice Yaoche. How do you react at this point based on what Otumfuo has been saying and what Dr. Manthio has also been saying, calling for the privatization of ECG particularly?
All right, thanks for having me. I think the name should just stay as Kojo Yaoche for now. I think it's good we are having this conversation. It is something that we have spoken about at ASEP for quite a long time now, that our inability, and like Dr. Manthio mentioned, our inability to separate the politics from the technical management of the sector is our own undoing. And it's been the reason why we are facing some of the challenges that we are facing. The strategy that we've had allowing ECG to reform itself has not worked. And what we see is that you have a government-owned entity that is generating a lot of inefficiency, both commercially and technical inefficiencies that are priced into our tariffs that we pay. And there are no significant attempts until recent times when the economic regulator has decided to crack its whip to get the business to be running as a commercial entity. And if you have a utility that is making losses up to 40% on the power that you give it, that business, no private person will run their business in that manner that year on year, the losses keep on increasing. That's notwithstanding the fact that tariffs have also been increasing. You expect that with tariff increasing, there will be a lot of revenue within the system to take care of some of these issues. But the PRC reports rather suggest that whilst tariffs are increasing, debt continues to be accumulated within the space. So it is good that we are having this conversation to try and see how we can find sustainable reforms. It's just that we have to be cautious what form of privatization that we want to explore. There are different models that are available to be explored. We still believe that ECG is still a strategic asset to the state. So we should be considering the last mile metering and revenue collection. How do we involve the private sector, genuine private sector capital, to be able to transform those spaces, because the technology exists to be able to detect people who are stealing power. The technology is available to detect faulty meters that are leaking power. All of those things are there, but you need that management of the space away from government hands so that the PULC, which is government regulator, can effectively regulate it. If you look at the recent stance against from ECG against the PULC, bring these documents, they will not bring it. The share load management schedule, they will not do it. If it were to be a private business, they wouldn't behave like this towards their regulator. But because they are all government entities, ECG feels, well, my board and my boss is appointed by the government, the state, even though the regulator has institutional representation, they have to also be appointed by the government, the president. So they feel that they are equal partners in the business and one doesn't have to report to the other. We need to find a way to delink the business of running business entities and also regulating those entities within the space.
All right, I'll come back to you. I mean, because we've done this before, looking at PDS, and the case is still being arbitrated in the United States. But because you're speaking specifically to the ECG, I want to now bring in Michael Nyantechi, who is the General Secretary of the Public Utilities Regulatory Commission with the ECG. Michael Nyantechi, so both Dr. Manthi Yao and Justice Yaoche are saying that indeed they agree with what Otumfuo has been saying, just that there are some dynamics that we should look at carefully. How does this really sit with you?
I think, as Dr. Manthi Yao mentioned, this is virtually a path we have gone over, and now we are back again to this same issue. And I think from where we are sitting as a union, and I'm not with the Public Utility Regulation.
Right, you're with the Public Utilities Workers Union. Right.
Yes.
My bad.
So we have always maintained that the answer to the challenges that we are facing in the energy sector is not just by simply handing over the institution to a private sector operator. We believe that there are key challenges in the system. And I think Dr. Manthi Yao mentioned some, and then the last speaker has also mentioned some. And for us, the major issue we find with almost all the state institutions is the excessive political interference. If we are able to deal with that, I strongly believe that there are very qualified professionals in all these energy institutions, if given the free hand without any political maneuvering, will be able to do a professional job that will not bring us into where we are at the moment. And I always cite the example. Everybody who followed up, even though we strongly think against handing over the company to private sector participants and PDS was brought in, within the about 6-7 months that PDS was in operation, because the hand of government had virtually been lifted or limited, PDS operation in terms of day-to-day running and managing of the company, there were, everybody could see clear changes and transformations. And this was not because they brought in any experts from anywhere. It was basically the same staff working. But at that point in time, the excessive political interference was curtailed. The problem we have when the issue of political interference, privatization is raised, it's like as if we are trying to throw the bath water with the baby. And we think that the solution is just giving the company to private sector access. It is not a panacea. And if you want to find out why just handing over the company to private ownership or private entities will not solve the problem, don't go far. Just go to our neighboring country, our neighbor Nigeria. Nigeria liberalized and then handed the company over to private ownership. But the problems they are having in their energy sector is even worse. If we want to address the problems within the energy sector, we should be ready to divert the politics from the day-to-day operations of the company. And then also, sometimes when we talk about the private sector participation, we only assume that it is when the company is owned by private entities, then we are personal. Currently, if you look at the interventions that the new ECG management has brought in place, there is significant participation by the private sector. And that has culminated in some of the changes that we have seen. But unfortunately, the major problem of the political interference is still there. So that problem has not been resolved. So if we want to get a proper solution, we need to look at it from that angle. We should get either some arrangement where the board of the company, the appointment of a chief executive is not based or left in the hands of any political authority. And then we can get the institutions to run and operate professionally. There are examples across the globe where state-owned entities are run professionally, devoid of political or partisan consideration.
Right.
And we believe that that is where we have to be looking at.
Okay. Dr. Mantiao, I want to bring you back into the conversation because, well, like the Otumfo said, our issue is money. You mentioned politicization, but there are certain learnings from our previous engagements with PDS that should teach us something going forward. So my question to you is, how do we reconcile the learnings? Because power is... Please hold for me. Let me finish my question. Hello? So electricity is a basic utility. If we hand it over to private investors, profiteering comes to play. So how do we reconcile these two issues and ensure that we are finding ways to solve our problems of money, politicization, and at the same time doing what's best so that everyone in this country can have power?
Right, thank you. We often tend to think narrowly that money rests with only private, individual, or corporate entities. We've been here before. I recall somewhere in 2006, as a result of excessive governmental interference in the affairs of the Ghana Commercial Bank, where they were directed as to whom to give loans to. You recall there was a scandal involving the Ahoy brothers and some monies they took from the bank. There was also the issue of overexposure to the Tema oil refinery. All of it worked to bring the bank to its knees. Government thought it needed money to invest in the bank and to save the bank from collapse. And its strategy was to hand over the assets of Ghana Commercial Bank to a strategic investor, at least 70% of it. Some of us organized and protested and campaigned against that move. In the end, I recall the finance minister then was Honorable Osafo Mafu, and he challenged us, the CSOs, to give an alternative to what government had proposed. And we proposed the stock exchange as the alternative for raising the required funding. Government listened, and I give the Osafo Mafu's government the credit. And they went to the stock exchange. And the shares that they took to the stock exchange, 70%, was oversubscribed, meaning government got much more money than it needed. Same happened with Goyle. At a time when Goyle was on his knees, government had to go to the stock exchange and was able to raise more than it needed to save Goyle from collapse. It happened also with SIC. So we've done it before, and there's a template to follow. So if you talk about learnings, these are the learnings, the positive learnings that I would like to firmly place on the table. The negative learnings would be at a time when we were facing similar crisis in the water sector. We brought Aqua Bitens Rand under a management contract to salvage the situation. After 5 years of operating Ghana Water Company, services deteriorated, and those were the years we saw the Kufuor gallons. So they could not salvage the situation, and we had to refuse to renew their contract after the initial 5-year phase. And then we handed over Ghana Water to Ghanaians, and then services began to improve. Mr. Nantechi is right. Ghanaian, and I believe in the competence of the Ghanaian manager and its ability to deliver if you take away the political interferences, often to achieve narrow political ends. So if this country can find a way of insulating strategic national assets that I think at all costs, this country must hold sway in, and that will include water, electricity, and the financial and the telecom sector, to the extent that the government holds a majority stake, we should find a way to insulate them from political interferences. And I'm pretty sure these companies will deliver. We have a similar situation in GMPC, where in spite of the fact that we knew there was a very competent person, Mr. Joseph Dazi, to run the affairs of the company, because he was not well connected politically, he was sidestepped and the position was handed over to a relative of people in the current government. After a while, we saw fast deterioration in the fortunes of GNPC. And now we have had to go back to bring Mr. Joseph Dazi to undo the downward trend in the affairs of GNPC.
Right.
So clearly, I mean, the lessons are quite abundant that political interference is what we need to deal with in trying to salvage the situation.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mantiel. But Benjamin is standing by in the studio. Ben, you've been following the conversation so far. What are your thoughts?
It's been interesting, and Dr. Steve Mantiel paints a certain picture about, yes, privatizing locally maybe, but ensuring that Ghanaian managers with the wherewithal can get there. But that is where the devil is, really, in the detail, because he also talks about political elements and how we've seen them heading institutions. Sometimes you have square pegs and round holes. But let's now bring in as well founding president of Imani Africa, Franklin Kujo. He joins the conversation. And now, Mr. Kujo, good morning.
Good morning, my brother. How are you?
I am well. I hope you're well too.
I could be better, thank you.
All of us could be better. But speaking of this, power situation and everything in between. First off, let me find out from you. I hope your power hasn't been out in very recent times, even before we get to the substantive.
It's been doing the dance like the Phantasmagoria. What's it called? Disco lights. I slept in darkness for almost 11 hours 3 days ago.
Wow.
And it wasn't pretty. Yeah. I mean, I'm surprised that the people are quibbling over the terminology of them. So isn't it stupid, really, to think that when the lights go off for a very long time and it comes back, you can't describe it as doom so, or you should be describing it as some sort of fanfare. I can't believe this, really. And I'm surprised that we have allowed ourselves to be basically taken for a ride by the energy minister, who has never had the penchant to even apologize for those awkward statements he made, that everybody should go and look for his own or timetable. How silly. How asinine. Sorry, this morning.
It appears you are charged up. You are fired up this morning.
I'm just angry. I'm just angry. You know, it's not fair. We shouldn't be doing these things to ourselves. I mean, people can decide to be arrogant and dismissive of what happens in public discourse, but you cannot take everybody for a fool, really. And I'm surprised that the minister has not been asked to apologize. Indeed, he's never even... I hear he's even saying that you say the same thing again if he had a chance, really.
Well,
anyway.
Let's come to the substantive issue then. Yesterday at the commissioning of the Kumasi thermal plant, the Kumasi 1 thermal plant, formerly Ameri, because it's practically the same thing, the Asante Hene actually came forth with something curious, suggesting privatizing the ECG and some other entities, including Gridco. Now, there have been different schools of thought on that. Dr. Mantea was just saying privatizing is not necessarily bad, but are we going to have local managers? Is it going to be a local privatization? What's your take?
Good morning, Steve. First of all, I mean, I don't even know why we are struggling to understand that the types of privatization that occurs in this part of our world are chronic capitalist arrangements. Yes, Munchendi type of arrangement. We've never really given privatization its clearest and fair name. That's not to say that even in places where privatization occurs correctly, there are no shenanigans. There are. But what occurs in this part of our world are chronic capitalist arrangements. The last time we decided to have private participation in our electricity supply system, look at how it ended. It ended because certain people...
Are you referencing the PDS? Are you referencing PDS?
The PDS. Okay. Clumsy. It was totally clumsy. To think that the Americans were willing to give us money so that we would do things right, we messed it up because of partisan, not partisan politics. That's coarseness, what I call precocious, terrorism, really. Financial terrorism was what led to all the PDS process to falter. So I understand Steve when he talks about the fact that, look, it's not really about the what's it called? It's not that we don't have world-class managers in this part of the world. We do have it, and we should do a proper blend. But that's not to give a privatization a bad name because we don't do it right. So what Asantini is saying is not really new. I mean, you Benjamin, you know pretty well that what the Asantini was saying was not really new. In fact, if we had been doing the right things, would have probably privatized almost even water itself. I know Steve would be shaking his head. But people assume that water cannot be privatized when our struggling folks are buying water 3 times, 4 times the normal price that even the rich will buy. So there's already privatization going on for some of these services. Why pretend that it cannot be done? We're only pretending because when we do start the process, you see all kinds of, octopus-like behavior. People trying to cream up where they are not supposed to do, right from procurement all the way until the whole process is divested. So that's exactly what is plaguing us. It's not that we can't do it. Look at ECG. Even the procuring of meters has become something like it's become fetish.
So I get your point. It can be done. I mean, no one has suggested that it can't be done. It can be done, but you look at the timing. You look at the economic situation. And you also look at the viability of our economy. The telcos are by and large in foreign hands, services in this country. Some have said, you go this way with our power and likely water, then nothing. The levers of our economy are all in the hands of private enterprise, whether local or foreign. That is dangerous for national security.
Benjamin, I don't even understand the conversation about timing at all. In economics, you actually deal with economics of scale. If I'm making an investment in an enterprise, I'll be wise enough to understand what plagues the industry currently or whatever I'm buying, and look at have conversations with the shareholders, and we come to a common ground. If it is the case that we can't trust our leaders to negotiate properly, let's say so. But we cannot suggest that if I want to buy ECG, for instance, I shouldn't be careful about its assets and liabilities. I'll do so and offer a price that will be fair. If the price is not light, then you reject it. And I don't think only Ghanaian leadership should be allowed to take that decision. That's the only way we can cure this. It has not. In fact, it is when the economy is actually precarious that you actually should be divested, so that you don't spend government money going to subsidize these entities any longer. Have you seen the books of some of the SOEs? You'll cry. And Steve knows truly well that what I'm saying is true. It has nothing to do with the color of the person or the color of the times. It has everything to do with economics and economics of scale. If I can make a profit, why not? But I don't have to care too much about whether the entity belongs to the so-called strategic assets, they call them. What have they retained? What strategy have they retained when we needed that much?
So merely because they have failed in doing that, we should let go of them?
It's not because they have merely failed. They perennially have been failing. So it has nothing to do with whether they are in the hands of the state or in the hands of the private person. I'm saying that it will be better to divert some of these resources that are wasting and wasteful, that we are always subsidizing, by giving them away to competent hands that will discuss the value in return.
Are you taking note of what the cost factors could be? Looking at what we are paying now for electricity and water, if we hand it over to private enterprise, Sweetie Awachi, my colleague, was talking about profiteering earlier. Things could become even more dire for the ordinary man or woman trying to purchase electricity, and who knows, maybe in future water. Have you put that into perspective?
Well, Benjamin, 2 things. First of all, let's not deride profiteering. It's from profit that you invest and then scale. That's the way it is. If you decide that you want to run a state utility on the whims of socialist ideas or communist ideas, well, so do so. Then find money to continuously feed that pledge. But if you want to do so and return a profit that would then encourage what I call differential pricing, then maybe you should do that. And I think even for crying out loud, even for private actors, they are mindful of what they call differential pricing. That's why MTN is able to give all manner of offers to certain categories of persons, because they know that all the pockets, all the hands are not the same. We can do all of these without necessarily bastardizing privatization. Once again, the kinds of privatization that have occurred in this part of our world are chronic capitalist ones with state actors, politically exposed persons trying to milk the entire system. That is not privatization. It is not. And we cannot say that because we are in economic difficulty, which was not caused by private actors by them, it was caused by the same people we are expecting them to manage on our behalf. That was the point, really. Why not give it to somebody who will be doing it properly and returning the value? I mean, companies have been here since time. Didn't MTN start as Scancom? Why have they evolved? I mean, they've evolved all these years and are doing well. How much taxes do they pay? They pay so much and still find time, money to do other corporate social responsibility activities. Of course, the state cannot be the same as a corporate entity, but at least, if you want to give your money to a politician to manage your life for you, you better be sure that he's able to return some real value and not see that as an avenue to not just milk the system, but actually make it worse as well.
Right before I go back to Sweetie Abochi, just a quick thought, Franklin Kujo. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how supportive are you of what the Asantehene said? I don't know whether you're thinking local privatization or foreign privatization, but on a scale of 1 to 10, how supportive are you of that? And then Sweetie Abochi.
Well, I'm 100% supportive, but let me also add that when Asantehene talks about that and talks about local participation, it is possible, but we shouldn't go the way of South Africa. That decided to do what they call the black enterprise, I forgot to be, and messed it up, and only a few blacks actually enjoyed what's it called, on the blunt side of millions of blacks, which is why the politics of South Africa is in a mess today.
Right. Benjamin, it appears one thing runs through all these thoughts that are coming up, that we shouldn't hand over everything to private investment.
We probably should have a stake.
Yes, some parts of it, because we need money. And if the government cannot provide that money that we need, we should allow investors to come in and take over that. But I want to bring back Justice Yache, because he was making a point about being cautious, and then he started listing so let me ask, where do we draw the line? How much of ECG, Gridco can we give to private investment, and what part of it can we retain? Justice Yache, yeah.
So the point I was making, I think Franklin touched on that point very well about the kind of privatization that we've been having here. It's not just saying that we should privatize the company, but what kind of people are we giving the company to? Are we looking for genuine capital, or we are looking for posers who are politically exposed people, have no capacity to do anything, and then we hand it over to them just to milk the states? That is not what we are looking for. With lessons that we've learned from the past, we have suggested that we can face the privatization of the company, looking at how we can hand over some of the technical management and the operational management to private people. It could be local, it could be foreign, and then at some point, like Steve also suggested, list it on the stock exchange. The whole idea is to take away the management of the company away from the politics that is bedeviling it. Because it's because of the politics that decisions that they have to take to be able to ensure that the right things are done, they are not able to do it. And we can't continue with the same way, we are doing the business. If you look at every year, the power sector alone is costing us $1.5 billion in under recoveries alone that the government has to come in to assume liability for. So even if you give the whole $3 billion that we are supposed to get from the IMF deal to the power sector, it can't even cover for 2 years the liabilities that are accruing from there. So the time is now that we need to have really serious conversations about it. The models for the privatization are numerous. They've worked elsewhere. But what we should guard against is posers, fraudulent people, politically exposed fraudulent people who would want to hijack that process. That process has to be transparent to ensure that we are able to know who owns the beneficial owners of all of these companies that would want to come and take over some portion of the management of the company. We are able to know their technical and financial capacity, not companies that are registered 2-3 months when the deal is announced, like we are seeing in Tor, for example. If you see the companies that have lined up that they want to take over the management of Tor, and we have come to speak against it, that's not how you do the business.
Right.
Competent businesses that can take over the management of these entities and make returns and value for the people. And you have the economic regulator that is on standby to ensure that the people are not shortchanged in terms of the cost burden on them and also the quality of service that is delivered to them.
Thank you so much, Kojo Yawache. But I want to come back to Dr. Manteau for your final words. And just leading with this question, do you think that this would actually happen? Do you think that government will actually agree for private investment into this power sector? Dr. Manteau, if you're still with me, please. And then you can wrap it up for us.
No, not at this time, because, we are in an election year. And even if government were to begin the process, chances are that they will not be able to conclude it before the elections. And we're not too sure whether a future government other than the MPP will be committed to what the MPP may have started. We know the nature of our political settlement in this country. So this is something, the discussion is helpful because it gets the political parties to begin to reflect, even as they develop their party manifestos, and to propose solutions if they should win political power. And that should guide most of us voters on how we vote. But as a general caution, I would say that we need to, as a country, make a distinction between strategic sectors of the economy and non-strategic sectors of the economy, and to be able to be mindful not to hand over the strategic sectors of the economy to foreigners.
Right. Thank you so much.
Just a last word there. Strategic sectors of the economy, such as finance, water, electricity, and even I dare add telecommunication, must be controlled by Ghanaians. Because, these are all belong to a service sector. And the service sector, because they are not producing tangibles that can be exported, you don't generate revenue from exports to shore up your city. But rather, because most of the revenue in the sector are generated in cities by foreigners, they then convert your cities into dollars. This is your oil, cocoa, gold, dollars that you brought in. They convert the cities they've earned by providing services and ship them out of the country. So your local currency is always wobbling. And that is why we should be careful in handing over some of these sectors to foreigners.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Steve Manteau. Michael Lanyantechi, let me let you have the final say here, and then we can wrap up. If you're still with me, what are your final thoughts?
Yeah, so just as Dr. Manteau mentioned earlier, I think that nobody can run away from the fact that, yes, there's the need for capital injection. But then the source of capital is varied. And we must always look at the source of capital that will not bring some adverse or more severe consequences. If we go in for foreign investing, basically we should know that at the end of the day, we are also going to experience the challenges with capital flight. So if there is the option where we can raise capital from within the country, and just like the example he mentioned, the stock exchange is one. Currently, we have also the various pension funds. If it's properly regulated and channeled, I'm sure the funds from the pension body can be also a source of financing once we make sure that the big hand of government or politics is taken away from the institution. We have more than technical, competent, experienced people within the country. The only problem we are having is that the institutions are too much politically sensitive and so much burdened with political interference. If we take it away and we allow the organizations to run on pure business principles and private sector business ethos, we can get the institutions which are so sensitive, like our energy sector, the financial institutions we mentioned,
right,
to function, and that will give more benefits to the state than handing them over to profiteers and especially private foreign investors.
Okay. Thank you so much. That was Michael Nyantechi, the General Secretary for Public Utilities Workers Union. We also spoke to Kojo Yawache, Policy Lead for Petroleum and Conventional Energy at ASEP, and Dr. Steve Manteau, the co-chair for Ghana Extractive Industry Transparency Initiative. And then Franklin Kujo joined us, President of Imani Africa. Benjamin, it's interesting that nobody is opposed to the idea of privatization. And specifically, the Otumfuo spoke about supply and distribution. Issue of management has also come up. So where do we go from here?
I mean, I side more with what Dr. Steve Manteau said. It resonates more with me. No one is against privatization.
Yeah.
But like I have said, and it is interesting that Dr. Manteau is thinking along the same lines. Even our telco system,
Yeah.
the services.
Yeah.
The services are in the hands of foreigners. It's a dangerous thing for national security. Now, he makes the point that, yeah, local to some extent. But he's also talking about capital flight, especially when you have the foreign entities come in. Because, yes, there'll always be pressure on your local currency, and the cedi hasn't fared so well against the dollar. This year, between 8.5 and 11% shaved off in terms of the losses. So if this continues, and then you have another PDS-like entity come into the system, they are going to change your cedis into dollars, put more pressure on the dollars you have, capital flight. It may not be the best of situations. Plus, again, with the PDSs and the rest, it's not even about, like he said, maybe the stock exchange. But when you want to go down that road of maybe having entities come in, then you have the problem of people in power trying to front. They are beneficiary owners. They are behind the scenes. You don't know them. And they are the same people buying state entities. That becomes even more dangerous for our political landscape.
If you ask me, quoting someone, if the foundation is weak, the economy will expose you. All these issues coming up is our economy.
The fundamentals,
The fundamentals of our economy. Our CD is just not doing well. And if we can fix it, all these issues would go away. But that's how we are wrapping up for this belt of the conversation. We're not done. There's still more to come on the AM show. Keep watching.
Of these projects.
And we're back on your screens. I told you there was still more to come. At this time, let's talk about Mikado Holdings. I don't know if you've spotted their buildings, their conference halls, and so many ventures around town. But Mikado Holdings is a business venture. They have a lot going on for them. And they're doing an entrepreneurship week. In a studio joining me is Dr. Nana Michael Ajekumado, the CEO of Mikado Holdings Limited, and Helen Golo, who's the COO, Hands of Lush. And so they're going to tell us all about their entrepreneurship week. And these books I see looking good. Okay. Welcome to the studio, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
And how are you feeling?
Very well.
Okay.
Very well.
So to those who don't know you, how would you introduce yourself?
Nana doctor with PhD in entrepreneurship.
Okay.
Is somebody from Koforodia, Sushai. Starting from nowhere to where I am now, I think I have a story to tell. I am also the Nkabom Hine of New Dwabe in the Eastern region. So as a chief, I also command some respect, kind of.
Nkabom Hine is a unity chief, right?
Unity chief,
Great.
yes.
Okay.
And then having been the president of Ghana Red Cross, I'm now on the international level, International Federation of Red Cross. I am an election member. I've been on the JIPC board chairman before, And currently I'm with the CSIR Council. So having gone through life with all kinds of challenges, I think I have something to tell Ghanaians about how to start your business and how to grow your business and how to sustain it. And that's why I've come out with some of these books. Sometime back, 2010, I came up with this book, 7 Principles of Success and Wealth Creation. Why Ghanaians, we are crying for money. What is the business like? What is the business life? What kind of attitude should we have? And that is this one. And then I have these fundamentals of entrepreneurship. The graduate unemployment canker. I think I have a solution to it because entrepreneurship is key. And so I've written these 2 books, book 1
and book 2.
Book 1 and book 2, which we are going to launch on the 2nd of May.
Okay.
2nd of May 2024 at the Accra International Conference Center.
Can you leave the principles of wealth creation with me when you're leaving? But before we get into the books, Helen, could you tell me a bit more about this entrepreneurship week you have coming up?
Yes, Mikado Holdings is doing an entrepreneurship week where there will be seminars, there will be the book launch itself, and it will also end up in a fair, an entrepreneurship fair. And we are entrepreneurs. House of Lush is an entrepreneurial business.
Is it under Mikado Holdings?
No, it is, but we are part of the week and we are exhibiting at the fair.
Right.
Now, when we heard about this, we quickly jumped onto it. You know, if somebody has been to war, has gone through the trenches, and he comes out and tells you exactly what you have to do to go and come back successfully, you follow him. I followed Nana for a very long time. He's one of the foremost entrepreneurs of this country, and he's done very well, starting from where he is to where he is now. So that is why we have also come on board to join in this program. And we are encouraging every entrepreneur, aspiring small businesses, to come on board because you will learn everything you need through the seminars, get the books to be able to succeed, to grow your business from a small scale to scale it up.
Okay.
That is why we're involved.
There's a seminar, there's a book launch, and then there's a trade, or there's some sort of fair, an exhibition.
Yes.
Okay.
On 29th and 30th is the seminar at the Mikado Conference Center.
Okay.
And then on the 2nd is the launch and the fair at the International Conference Center.
Okay.
So we're inviting all entrepreneurs, aspiring ones, small ones. You come. You will learn so much that could help you to move your business forward.
But Nana, why are you combining a trade fair and a book launch?
They're all together.
Okay.
Because if you're an entrepreneur, you want to showcase your products.
Right.
Then the fair is good for you. The exhibition will also be good for you. And we are expecting over 1,000 participants. All business schools are coming. All small-scale businesses. In fact, we are even inviting big-time businesses.
Okay.
Look at the people that are on board.
So there you have it on your screen.
Yes.
That's the
Sir Sam Jonah is our special guest speaker. Dr. Macaulay will be the chairman for the occasion. Others that are coming on board include Togbe Afede, Mr. Dade of GIPC, the current chairman. I have been the chairman before, and so we are collaborating. A lot more. Reverend Albert Okran will review the book. And then we have Tobinko, Kwesi Chum, your boss. They are all coming to give us fraternal messages.
Our very own.
Yes.
Okay.
It's so nice.
This is, star-studded is an exaggeration, but it is star-studded, isn't it? And now I do not want to miss this. But what
You're all
do we stand
invited.
Thank you. When we come, what are some of the things we should expect, aside hearing from these
gurus? These gurus will give you the tidbits of business. We want to really solve the problem of this graduate unemployment. And then there's also something to do with economic crisis. How do you solve it? In spite of what we are experiencing now, some people are making it. Those who have the techniques or the skills of moving yourself within the maze of economic crisis, Why don't you come and listen to them?
Right.
I, for one, coming from nowhere at the age of 7, that I started my life, till today that I'm in my 70s, what have I achieved? Why am I saying this, that don't go abroad, stay, and you can make it called Ghana. It's an acronym, Glorious Home, All Nations Admire.
Please say that again.
Glorious Home, All Nations Admire.
Yeah.
So why are you not admiring your own country, this glorious home? I did not want my children to go abroad. So from JHS, I was subject you to a vocational training. Boy or girl, you sell in the street from JHS. Form 1 in your senior high school, holidays, you do hairdressing, boy or girl. Form 2, you do electricals. Form 3, you be a mechanic. Before you go to the university, you should know what goes into the machine that sometime in your future you'll be using. That's the car. At that time, they thought, oh, Dad, you are humiliating us. Dad, why don't you let us go for computer lessons? I said, no. I could see the future. 30 years ahead, there will be no jobs. So you have to create your own job. As it is now, things are going to get worse if you don't do things yourself. And that's what this seminar is all about. And then this book, Fundamentals of Entrepreneurship.
Actually, just a quick glance through the book. I see that it's like a pool of knowledge, because the little I know about success in life, you must first have a vision.
Okay.
And it's right here, vision. It says define your vision.
Yes.
A vision is the ability to see without the eyeballs. So like seeing with your mind's eye. And the point is so clear, the binding, the book itself. I think you should attend this seminar and grab a copy for yourself. But
Exactly
did
so.
you get the support of the business community in terms of sponsorship while organizing this event?
Oh, I think the flyer that went on your screen, you see the sponsorship at the bottom.
Okay,
People
yes.
are getting so excited about it. In fact, your studio here, your media, is also on board. In fact, they've promised to give us live coverage. GTV is also coming on board. Graphic is on board. A lot more. AGI, NEIP, yes, GIPC, CSIR, they are all coming. Everybody gets excited when they hear about entrepreneurship. And that's what is for us all in the 21st century. Entrepreneurship is key, I tell you. But my focus is on the entrepreneurial mind. What is the mindset? You are an employee and you are coming to work every day, but you are not an entrepreneur. How do you create an entrepreneurship system within what you are doing to support your company? You have no idea. Until you read this book, you may not know. You may be doing things the way you do, but there's more to it than you think. I'm telling you that the brain is divided into two, the left and the right. They do two different things. Your left brain, which you have developed so well, is for logic, for language as we speak, is for analysis, is for arguments. The right does something different. As we sit in the studio right now, you see the limit of the room. That's your left logical brain telling you that we are in an enclosure. But the right will tell you, no. You can see through the walls and see your house, your room, the sponge that you used this morning. You can even see your village. If you've traveled abroad to London before, as we sit here, you can see. That's the power of the mind. And that's coming from the right-hand side of your brain. This book talks about it.
Dr. Nana Michael Ajekumadu, everyone, CEO of Mikado Holdings. But before we wrap up, how much is a book for? How much is one copy of the book?
It will be after the launch.
Oh, okay.
But for now, if you want to grab a copy, I would say 150.
Okay.
But from the book launch, we'll see if you can come down.
Right,
Yes.
and it will be absolutely worth it. But Helen, any final words before we wrap this
Yes,
up?
I would want to encourage all entrepreneurs to be part of this program. The seminars are free.
Okay.
So you can gain all this knowledge without paying for it.
Okay.
People have lent years, studied years, to come and give you what they know, and you're not paying for it. I would also like to encourage businesses that have started up, that will want to showcase, to come and be part of the fair itself on the 2nd at the Accra International Conference Center.
Okay.
House of Flash will be there. We'll be both at the seminar and also will participate in the fair. So when you come to, you look for us, and then you see what we have.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
So if you want to hear more from both Helen and Dr. Nana Michael Ajekumado, you should go to that seminar and fair on the 2nd of May, first 29th to 30th of April at the Mikado Conference Center for the seminar. And then the book launch is on Thursday, the 2nd of May, 2024. Details are on your screen right now. So you can pick the numbers to call and get in touch so that you can
And
book
I'll
a
teach
place.
how to identify business opportunities.
Okay.
And then the opportunities already in Ghana.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Doc and
Welcome.
Helen.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. But please stay with us. There's still more to come. We'll be right back.
Welcome back on the AM show. If you haven't heard yet, we're telling you, In the Pants of a Woman. What is that? You find out at the National Theatre come the 20th and the 21st, but it's a play. And joining me in the studio, there's Shelter Adeti. She's an actress, and we also have Bertram Jude Buckman, an actor. They are both going to be live at the National Theatre on the day. But I'll start with you, Shelter. What got you into this project?
So I've always had a passion for, I'm mainly a singer, but I decided to explore, what it is to be an actor. And
So is this your first stint?
Yes, it is.
First?
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And what has the experience been like so far? Your first foray into acting?
It's very different. I mean, learning lines and putting everything together. It's a lot of hard work, but I mean, it's worth it. The experience was really exciting. Yes.
I see. Well, let me come to you, Bertram. I know you've been doing a few things here and there. This is not necessarily new to you, right?
No, not necessarily. It isn't. My first time was last year in November with Fifi Kuman Still a Rose. That was my first stage performance, and it's something that I've had been doing in secondary school. But it's always been a passion for me, something I've always wanted to do and wanted to be, and to have the platform and the opportunity to do it, it's really surreal. So
Scribe Productions, Kobanansa, bringing this to the fore. But what is this about, In the Pants of a Woman? Just give us a sneak peek of what it's about.
All right. So basically, it's about a lady who is at the peak of her career, doing so well, doing everything, like from fighting for victims of sexual assault and maybe victims here and there, and just working out for people who are less privileged in society. And she starts a new job at this new place, and all of a sudden, everything she's fighting for or fighting against for less privileged people happened to her. Now she's left to the decision to whether to fight it or just let it go. And that is something that we are trying to put out. It's also an original musical on rape. Yeah,
and that's the crucial bit, because the last time one of the actresses came into the studio and she was sharing her own near rape incident as well. So this is a pretty interesting picture that you're going to be painting on the 21st and on the 20th of this month. Who are those who can attend, or is it open to everybody?
It's open to everybody. We actually want everyone to come see, including children, because there are lessons in there that everyone has to learn. People have to be sensitized about some things. Some things out there that we do not know that are harassment or sexual assault, or it's an abuse in some way, but it's normalized in our society. But it's something that we are trying to put out into the world or into our society, that yes, this is something that's happening, and it's not okay. It's not normal. It's not normal. It's not something that you see should be every day. So that's something that we're putting out. So we want everybody, every Tom, Dick, and Harry to come see this play.
Now, he has shared his thoughts on it. What can we expect on D-Day? On the 20th, on the 21st, you're going to be on stage. I'm going to be praying for you since it's your first time, but what can people look forward to?
And you can look forward to a great show. I mean, it's been 4 months of very intensive rehearsals. So we are putting our best foot forward, and we expect everybody to come and enjoy the show and be a part of this. And let's start the conversation on rape and rape culture in this country.
Okay. I'm sure there'll be pearls of wisdom there for everybody.
Definitely. Everybody.
All right. Thank you so much. Any final words from you?
I'll just say it's a lovely. It's not just because of the title, not because of the message we're trying to put out, but it's also a very, very beautiful play that everyone has to see, and it's also an original musical, and it's not something you see every day in Ghana. So I believe it's a wonderful and beautiful experience that everyone has to come see.
All right. National Theatre.
Yes.
20th and 21st. That's Saturday and Sunday. 3 p.m., 7 p.m. Yes. I think I've become a member of the crew now.
That's right.
So we look forward to it. Let's all patronize it. And I think it will also help us, reorient us when it comes to all this bit about rape, assault, and all those things in between. But those who joined us for the conversation, Shelter Aditi, right? She's an actress. And we also had Bertram Jude Buckman, also an actor on the day. Guess what? I'll be there to see you guys.
Awesome.
Glad to have you.
All right. Thank you for coming. Stay with us, because up next we'll be telling you just a little bit about the Joy News National Dialogue, guaranteeing power supply. It's later today, and you don't want to miss that. It's our national dialogue guaranteeing reliable power supply, and it's coming your way at 6 p.m. right here on this channel. We're bringing you details of that. The power situation there, we are there, whether you want to call it doomsday or not. But how do we resolve matters? How do we make things happen? Well, later in the evening, we'll bring you that conversation. But right before we go, let's take our photo of the day. And we'll get right into it and then say goodbye to all of you. And so there you have it, the photo of the day. I know you're very familiar with the dangers of pollution in some parts of the country. You remember some parts of Agbogloshi, what people would call Sodom and Gomorrah, described as one of the most poisonous places on earth. Well, there you see it. Usually you would have these young people dealing with aluminium, copper, and the rest, molten. And they're just trying to get something out of it. But the hazards to health, to their health, and the pollution to the environment, those are the questions to take stock of. So filth and this as well, deadly cocktail. That's another photo by Caleb Mensah, and we've titled it The Dangers of Pollution. Well, that's it for today. That's all we can bring your way. And of course, you have to say thanks to Sweetie Abochi and yours truly, always here serving you. We're grateful for your time. Stay with us, because up next, we serve you Joy News Desk on this channel. Have a good morning.